Good evening. What's up, everybody? It's DH Thorne here, coming at you live on this beautiful full moon Thursday night. Seems like a good time to just kind of hang out, watch the world shit itself a little bit more. Whew, wish that was a cold, smooth Colt 45. What's up, everybody? Let's see who's here. It's going to be a viewer's choice kind of episode tonight. Kelly Meadows says, have a good evening, everyone. Long night at work. We'll watch this later. Yes, I understand. Johan, what's up, brother? Guten Abend, alles. Yes, sir. I can never speak German well enough, but good evening to you as well, my friend. Guten Abend. I think that's what you say. Guten Abend. I don't know. Do you pronounce the S? I don't think you pronounce the S. Where's Eddie when I need him? Joke Biden. All right. Are you like one of those AI guys? Have you guys been watching those? Google it right now if you're bored. Not Google it, but YouTube Google it right now. You'll find that there's these really funny videos that have Joe Biden. I'm probably getting fucking shadow banned just for this. Joe Biden, Trump, and Obama like playing Dungeons and Dragons and shit. There's one where they're like playing Sea of Thieves, and there's one where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Dude, they're so freaking hysterical. Like, with everything going on, like, this is exactly what we need. Like, it's literally just, it's just pure comedy genius right now. Skeleton Power, what's up? And Joffrey, what's up? Or Jeff524, but I like to say Joffrey. Jared33, good evening, peeps. First time here. Well, since I'm new to working with spirits, it would be cool if you gave some pointers. In particular, I started working with King Paimon. All right. We can talk about that in a little bit. Let's see. Jay Baladale. I think I said that wrong. He says, hail, what's up, brother? Or sister, whatever a J is. What's going on? Oh, all right. Let me get tanked up here a little bit. Wait for some people to filter in, get the hellos out of the way. 12 people is not a horrible place to start. I didn't really, you know what? Let me share this again on Facebook to make sure all the haters know I'm live so that they can remember to join us. Sometimes, I've kind of fallen off the wagon with content creation. I've just had too much going on. Let me drop this into Babook. There we go. Sorry about the clacky there. Looks like 2 people unfriended me. I love the thing that tells me who leaves me. That's fine. And that's good. That's good. All right, perfect. Right, good. I've kind of fallen off the content creation bandwagon for a little while. And part of that, there's a couple layers of reasoning for that. One is maybe somewhat obvious, and it's the, situations at hand, shall we say. It's kind of like, why work my ass off when everything's going crazy, I've been focusing on my own personal work, shadow work, all of that stuff. And a lot of that isn't easy to translate, to make content for. It doesn't even necessarily translate into rituals. A lot of the way I do things is more meditative anyway. Rituals for me are like a colon cleanse. They're like taking X-Lax or something, and I don't even need to do the way most people do. I'll just go for a walk and bring my stick and talk to the spirits, But the last, 4 months or so, have been really illuminating for me. I've learned more in the last 3 or 4 months than I've learned in a long time. And it's not just about magic, but it's also about, hidden history, or covered up history, or occulted history. Depends on how you want to look at it. It's been really, really good for me to sort of stretch my wings. And one of the things that's been kind of meaningful is some of the stuff I'm learning coming from people like Graham Hancock and, Russell, what's his name? We just watched him tonight. I can't think of his name. It's my brain. It's my memory. I don't have a good memory. Uncharted X, Graham Hancock, Russell. Why can't I do it? It is Russell, right? Randall Carlson. Between them and a few others, but those are like the big players for me. Between them There's so many things that I channeled as a kid that sounded insane that don't sound so insane anymore. Like we're talking about other planets, you know, being destroyed in the solar system. But this is before I even heard of the Sumerian myths with all of that stuff. I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. That stuff didn't really enter the collective conscious till like what, 10, 20 years ago? Like not mainstream a little bit. So I had no way of knowing about it. You know, but it's quite potent to know, you know, to be vindicated and to then, as an adult with an adult mind, sophisticated, applying what I'm learning of, we'll say, standard Western occultism. Because what I've always been doing is some sort of a commingling combination of my own personal stylings, you know, that are influenced by everything. It's like just chaos magic, right? Not Osmond Spare chaos magic, but chaos magic in the I do it as I feel it, you know, inventive kind of way. And the fact that it resonates with a lot of people is a good sign. But now that I'm learning these other things, I now understand where it comes from and I understand what I'm doing better. So I've been sort of reinventing my own theories and practices. You know, so it's really an exciting time, even though everything's like falling apart. Azarath gave me 22 Canadian, or is that Californian dollars? I think that's Canadian. He says, what up, DH? What up yourself? Thank you for the beautiful super. You get a lengthy, long-winded rant if you give me a good question. Let's see. Jose Munez is here. He says, I'm also getting into Draconian magic. I feel like I've been guided into that particular current. So just remember not to take things too literally. That is, it gets a little tricky, but what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you visualize, what you dream, what you imagine in the astral, in the spiritual realms, that is an interface layer. That's like a way for your microcosmic mind to be in relationship with the macrocosmic self, because you're not just this and you're not just that, you're all of it. You're both sides, the point of absurdity. So when we're talking about dragon or draconian, there's a lot more to it than just, you know, things with wings and scales and stuff. It's pretty cool, but there's it's symbolic. Okay. Now I'm not as familiar with the, you know, ones that a lot of other guys are doing out there. I gotta blow my nose here. Give me a second. I was outside practicing some, excuse me, some short staff, actually. Didn't even work up a sweat because it's so gorgeous out. It's like cool out, so it was like a little chilly. It was perfect. I was taking it easy though. It's like I was kind of cracking the rust off the joints. You know, just be mindful of the origins of it, and I think you'll have a good time with it. You know, there's a lot of different ways to interpret it, especially if you're talking about like the energy of the earth, like the ley lines, like that's dragon energy and all that. It's pretty potent. It's pretty potent. I work with ley lines. I'm not sure if that's in the tradition you're starting to work on, but it's very potent. Let's see here. So let's see. Solora S says, hey everybody, good to be here indeed. Joke Biden says, whoa! I think he needs a what does Joke Biden need? I think he needs some ice cream. We should give him some vanilla ice cream. Man. Whew. That's why I'm drinking. I'm like kind of like still like my heart rate's not high, but it's like I still feel like I could go running. All right, let me get to Jared's question first. So, Jared, depending upon what tradition and system you're working on, nothing I say is going to help you, or it may be really helpful. The last video I did about working with spirits is probably the best video for a lot of beginners on the subject, because you've got to demystify, which is ironic because I'm a mystic. You know, that's like my direction. I'm a dark mystic, as I call myself. But you gotta not be theistic, in my opinion. Now, this offends people. For some reason, when you tell people like you don't believe in their sky daddies the same way they do, they get offended. I've never quite understood this, probably because I think they feel like you're calling them crazy or something, which I'm not, you know. But I think it's because people invest so much into the belief of the literal reality of spirits. And I got to be careful with how I put this because it's very easy to say this wrong. I don't mean like it offends people wrong. I mean, I don't care if you're offended. I want to make sure I'm saying it appropriately, like the facts. Because I'm not saying they're not real. I'm just saying they're not real like in the literal sense. Maybe that requires a longer conversation. But that's why I say watch that last video I put out on the subject of spiritual entities. And how to approach them in your work. You know, recognize, like I said earlier in the video, everything you see in the spirit world, okay, which is like the layer above the etheric, you know, I don't usually get into these things because to me, I think people get sometimes trapped in the minutia of the how many parts of your energy body are there, which one's right, which one's wrong. And I really need to address this more now. I think it's really important. It's like something I never really got into addressing. Because it's all kind of blended together. All of these, when you ask a question about spirits, even a vague one like that, it's hard because there's so much that goes into it. You know, it depends on your tradition, your beliefs. Now, I want to point out that, like, someone will say, like, well, which tradition is true? Well, all of them and none of them, because generally speaking, magical traditions and the better religions, because I'm not a fan of organized religion, but what bothers me is the organization more than the subject matter. Like usually the subject matter on its own is fine. Even Christianity, if you took Christianity and yanked it out of the hands of the Orthodox Church and allowed it to be its own independent, decentralized thing that wasn't so disconnected from its, you know, true origins, both in myth and esoteric reality, it would be fine. You know, it got turned into a system of control in the age of Pisces, because that's kind of what Pisces is. It's kind of, it's like being tethered. You know, you have two fish with a string. That's the old symbol. I don't know if I forget if that's the current symbol, but it's kind of like, it sort of represents being trapped or being controlled or being connected, you know, like a duality there. And so they took spirituality, which used to be just a way for people to, yeah, it was a control mechanism. It usually is, but it was a lot more tolerant and open before that. And then when Orthodox Christianity, not Christianity itself, like Gnostic Christianity, early Christianity wasn't like that. Of course, they weren't in a position to be, but they weren't going to be. Like that was never the intention of early Christianity. Early Christianity, this is why I defend Christianity a little bit. Like people go like, how could you be a left-hand path occultist and not hate on Christians 24 hours a day? I hate Christian religion. I hate Christianity, the Orthodox religion. I don't hate the Christian milieu, so to speak, you know. That doesn't offend me, because if you know how to read the Bible, even the New Testament, the symbolism in it is still occult and valid and great if you know how to read it, and then also take out the parts that were sort of altered to fit a control and manipulation narrative by the orthodoxy. You know, once you start delving into some of those apocryphal texts, and once you learn, for example, even just some rudimentary Kabbalistic stuff or symbolism or learning Bible code and stuff, which I'm not saying I know, but I have just a little dropper's worth, just a little dropper's drop. When you understand that stuff, it makes perfect sense. You know, like for example, in the book of Genesis, when it says, let there be light. Well, Orthodox Christianity, for example, they take that usually in a literal form, you know, in some fashion. So they think it means that in the beginning, all was darkness, formless and void. And then the Lord created that, light, okay? Like the sun, or light was the first thing. No, light is a symbol for illumination. It's a symbol for the mind or consciousness. It depends on your interpretation of it. Some people would say it's the mind. Some people would say it's like Kether or whatever, which is that's a tough one, isn't it? If you know what Kether is, that's a tougher one. But the ultimate, you know, but it's like an outpouring of light. That's consciousness. That's awareness. That's mind. That's, you know, there's a lot of ways to interpret it. You know, they might all be decent. I'm sure if I had like a rabbinical guy or a real hardcore Kabbalist, which I'm not, addressing it, they could answer it maybe more clearly. But let there be light wasn't like someone turning a light switch on. What it was like a dawning of conscious awareness. Now, what does this have to do with spirits? Because if you're working with spirits, especially as a beginner, you're probably approaching this from the mythology as literal on some level, either literal or literal in the spiritual sense, or literal. You have to take the literal part, and you absolutely can connect to entities which have self-awareness. They are self-aware conscious beings. That isn't in dispute with me. The dispute that I have is when it's taken literally, in the sense that like Zeus literally casts lightning bolt on people, you know, or Yahweh literally is the Christian God. There's so much there. Like you can even interpret Yahweh as the demiurge, you know, Yaldabaoth. There's so many ways you can interpret that thing. And in actuality, in the esoteric side of Abrahamism, Yahweh is like Brahman. Okay, it's kind of the same thing. Kether is like, you know, Para-Brahman, and Yahweh is like Brahman. You know, that Yahweh, if I remember correctly, is like Chokmah, and you have all these different ways of interpreting these words that have been dumbed the fuck down for the average person to use as mythology and religion so that they can conform to society, because not everybody is capable of comprehending or integrating the deeper nuances of the esoteric side of spirituality. I disagree with the premise that means you should hide it from them. I don't think that's right. I think that was a power play that the powers that be used because they just wanted to control everybody. Other cultures are far more spiritually tolerant, and they don't do this crap. Yes, there's some stuff I believe in those tolerant, you know, we'll say like Eastern traditions, for example. It's a more tolerant culture spiritually anyway, if not other ways. There's still some, I believe, misinformation and mistranslation and misinterpretation and dumbing down, but they also are very open about that. One guy that I like to watch, Arsher Bodhi Center, I believe is the name of the channel, he pointed out that there's different practices, different traditions in Hinduism. Hinduism is not a religion, by the way. It's like calling it, you know, Europeanism, right? That's what Hinduism is like saying. So in Hindu religions that follow that Vedic kind of origin, and the Bhagavad Gita and all this kind of good stuff, those traditions, generally speaking, there is like this very entry level, take it as literal kind of religion that maybe the majority follow. But then you have the more esoteric and the more mystical ones, and they're not frowned on. Nobody frowns on anybody. The mystics don't frown on the other side, and they don't frown on the mystics, because the understanding is, if your level of capability, or your level of education or time or whatever is down here, then the symbolism of the myth is good enough for you to at least get your foot in the door of enlightenment. And maybe in a future incarnation, you can progress to those mystical levels. And that's usually how it's expressed. And then you have the mystical side, the more deep and, as they would say, lofty version. They understand that, well, the same thing I'm always telling you guys, which is there is no such thing as literal gods, but there's also no such thing as a literal individual. When I say individual, I mean separated. There's no such thing as a separated you. Yes, there's individuality because the microcosm being a microcosm is a reflection of the macrocosm. The macrocosm is individualized. There's only one. So it's normal and it's natural for each of us to be a individual, but not in a separate sense. That's the irony of it. That's why it gets a little paradoxical. But when you understand the deeper understanding, like if you read if you read Lao Tzu, for example, paradoxes do get resolved. You can resolve those paradoxes when you have the higher understanding, the greater wisdom. Those paradoxes get resolved, and you do understand. It's just, it's not an intellectual understanding. It's an awareness. It's a recognition. It's a before your words. You know, it happens before any words or language. So, the reason I'm telling you all of this, Jared, is because if you're going to start practicing these things, you need to respect two things. One, the symbolism. Don't take it too literally and don't be dogmatic about it. Two, you need to recognize that they're symbols for something archetypal in the totality of God, divine, pantheistic reality, whatever you want to call it. Whatever your word for the great whatever is. Okay? They're symbols of the logos or something within the totality or an archetype, or there's so many words you can use. They're all sort of fine to use because there is no word that's right? The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. You cannot describe the divine. You can only describe its manifestations. And so you can't say that there's nothing there, because there is. Now, not everybody encounters a King Paimon that is self-aware. And that's a stumbling block for a lot of people, because they expect, because of pop culture and religion and superstition and shit, that the only way it can be real is if King Paimon literally walks out of your bathroom, you know, smoking a cigar or something. That's not how this works. It's not the Conjuring movies. Get that shit out of your head. This is real mystical philosophy, esoteric magic, spirituality. It transcends all of this bullshit that you see in these religions and things completely. In fact, religion is, as a guy that I like to watch on YouTube, Theoria Apophasis, says, religion is secularized metaphysics. It's basically taking metaphysics and reducing it down into basically political control. So religion, as soon as you're able to detach from religion, just shove that shit to the side and ignore it for a while. Wait till you've integrated enough of the higher truth, and then you can look back at those religions and their teachings, strip their bullshit commentary out, and just find the symbolism in their Bibles and in their literature, and it stands out plain as day. It's obvious as the nose on your face. It's no longer like, you no longer take anything literal, not Genesis, not Revelation, not, I don't know, none of it. You don't take any of it literal the way you used to. And then it becomes rational, and then you can integrate it in your life, and then the weird stuff starts really popping off. Magic starts happening in a way that will blow your mind, because once you stop being attached to what religion taught you to believe, once you stop believing in it like that, you take off like a rocket. The minute you leave those inhibiting mind viruses behind, you've got, and this is the thing that really, disappoints me and frustrates me about whatever you want to call it, the magical community, the new age movement, all this crap. It's so superstitious, literal, and it really stumbles over itself. It literally stumbles over itself to maintain the illusion that going will summon Bloody Mary. Literally, it's not just in your mind. It's not a spirit in the astral or something. It will appear and kill you. Like, they want the Halloween movie to be true. They want the special effects to be true. Now, I get flack when I say that, because people are wired these days, or maybe forever, to think only in binary dualities of one or the other. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that that means that nothing supernatural or paranormal will happen to you. You absolutely will see some weird crap. You may, in fact, you may yet see King Paimon with a cigar coming out of your bathroom, but it'll probably be in your third eye that you see it, not in your literal living room, you know? Probably. That doesn't mean it won't, though. I've seen stuff that I cannot explain, things moving, shapes, figures in the darkness, all kinds of stuff, felt things, heard things, things have moved, broken, all the stuff you've seen in the horror movies and the cool, you know, sci-fi and fantasy movies. I've seen a lot of those things, but the reasonable, rational things for the most part. But there have been a few things I've seen which Twilight Zone level stuff. I mean, jumping timelines, seeing things completely differently than how they're supposed to happen, you know, things glowing, you know, weird stuff, okay? But it's not repeatable. They're like miracles. Those are legit miracles because they don't repeat. You can't just be like, if I say these words, then this ring's going to glow for me. It's not like Harry Potter. So if you're, I'm not saying you are like that, but if you are a beginner or if you're new to spirits, get this stuff and try to be rational and watch that last video that I put up, like, I don't know, over the weekend, I guess it was. Watch that one, because that one, you know, that's a video, like, I wish all that stuff's going to be in whatever future books I do. I'm going to help explain it that way. Let's see. Oh boy, there's been a lot of chats, and I got a super here from Johan. Johan, ever run across stuff from Lawrence Gardner, Tracy Twyman, or Nicholas DeVere? Interesting high weirdness. No, I have not, Johan. You know what? Send me on Discord or Facebook any links or anything if you think I would like it. Johan's a good friend of mine, by the way, guys. He's a really cool guy. Send me whatever you want from it. I've actually, true story, you guys know me. I always say I don't read anything. Well, I turned over a new leaf. I wish I could show you. I got like 20 books sitting here, and I've been reading them in pieces because I have ADHD. I don't read them all the way through. I've been skimming them and reading them, and it's been really illuminating. It's been great. You know, it's been really helpful to me. So whatever you got, let me know, and I'll see. Whew. All right, let me take a minute. The Dash Philosophy, I like where your head's at. All right, so he's saying we haven't proved we can be objective. So in the absence of an objective truth, we are probs best to concentrate on how we manage our subjective dream to keep us in a state of harmony, peace, and joy. And so I wouldn't qualify myself as either a subjectivist or an objectivist. As a non-dualist, I think that, you know, I shouldn't say I think. I know that for me, when I transcend this stuff in meditation or chemonosis or whatever method I'm using, when I do transcend this stuff in those states, subject and object go away. There's no sense of self and other. There is just consciousness and everything that's in that consciousness as something that's experienced. And there's no sense of I'm here and that's there. It's literally just all happening, and I'm it, and I'm in it, and it's all me. And there's a side to it, but there's no actual separation. So subject and object don't make sense in a non-dual framework of consciousness or understanding or gnosis or whatever your word for, you know, your paradigm is. Neither of those words are appropriate. But when you are in this incarnate state where you're not in that Gnostic or Samadhi or transcendent state, when you're not in that state, you have a sense of subject and object. And I lean towards reminding myself of subjectivity, because objectivity is only known through your subjective awareness. All any of us have access to is the subjective side of things. For all we know, all of these people that are telling us what they see are figments of our imagination. I know it's solipsistic, but you can't prove that anyone else exists. They're just something you're experiencing. Now, I'm not saying that means they don't exist, okay? That is solipsistic if you really believe that. But the point is, like, there's only like 4 things. I've said this before. There's only like 4 things that I am 100% like, that I know, that I'm sure of, that I cannot refute. In other words, you can't prove these wrong. at least not to me, and I guarantee you nobody can prove them wrong to you. One, you know you exist. You know you exist because you know stuff. You have a knowing. You're conscious of it. You're conscious of things. You're experiencing something. That's number 3. You're having experiences. You don't know if what you're experiencing, though, is in a normal frame of reference. You don't know if the things you're experiencing exist as they appear. You just know that you're having an experience. And you know that that's all you know. That's the 4th thing. Those are the only 4 things you can know for certain. You exist, you're conscious of that existence, and there's experiences within that consciousness. And the 4th thing is you don't know anything else for sure. Yes, you can assume everything after that because you can use a priori reasoning to determine if it's rational. And if it's rational, you just accept it, because what else are you going to do? Just kill yourself because you don't believe the world exists? No one's going to do that, okay? I'm not saying no one, but I wouldn't advise it. This is YouTube. I wouldn't even tell you to do it if I meant it. So what I'm saying is that after that 4th thing, everything is an assumption after that. You assume that 1 + 1 makes 2 because when you do that, it looks like a 2. You assume that when you pick up an object, you're picking up an object. You assume that you're doing things but that doesn't mean that's what's happening. That's what it looks like, but it's not actually necessarily real. And science concurs with this on, if someone wants to say science is up here and you have to listen to it, science concurs with this because if a good scientist will be the first to tell you this soda can does not exist as a soda can. It exists as a pile of atoms wiggling around. And then my response to that would be, okay, so what's an atom? Well, it's a bunch of subatomic particles wiggling around. Okay, where are they? And as you keep dividing this and trying to get to the nitty gritty of what it is, it becomes more and more unfathomable until you hit that infinite unknowable nothing again. You hit that same thing that the mystics talk about, the unknown, the ineffable. And that ineffable, and you say, well, is that something separate from me? And they would say, well, no, it's everything in your body is part of that same field. Okay, so it's all God. Thank you. We're done. Let's continue. So, I mean, it's really easy logically. It's not hard. The reason why I think a lot of scientists, objective scientists, refute the idea of God is just because they have a faulty definition of it. A lot of scientists, at least up until recently, were pantheistic. And if you know what pantheism is, you understand that meant that a lot of those scientists were still spiritual. They still believed in God, but they thought this was God, just like a non-dualist generally does. Yes, it's a lower form of a non-dual mentality when you think of a physicality as being the divine, okay? But it's not a far jump from like Carl Sagan's pantheistic attitude. He would never profess to a religion, but if you read what he says, if you listen to what he says, it's obvious he was a pantheist. It's really obvious with everything he says. We are a way for the universe to know itself. That's like you have to be like a Sufi, like that's like some Sufi level shit to say that. That's beautiful. I love it. That's why it's one of my favorite quotes. It's like the most non-dual quote I've ever heard. We are a way for the universe to know itself. And that alone, that single statement, when you take that and apply that to occultism, boom, like you go straight to the top. Like it just keep that mentality in mind. You are a way for God to know itself. Just take the word universe and make it God, because they're interchangeable to a pantheist. They're the same word. Okay. So understand that that's how it goes. Whew. All right, let's see. Let us see. Oh, taking my breathies here. Taking my breathies. All right. I'm trying to read you guys' comments, but you guys are commenting so fast. That's right, Johan. He says, if the world doesn't exist, why bother killing yourself? Exactly. I want to see how it ends. I want to see how it goes, man. Like, we're it's not going to end, by the way. This is going to be an incredible couple of years coming up, and it's going to be scary as shit for a lot of you, especially if you guys who aren't right, you know, right in the head. It's going to be scary. If you don't know what's going on, it's going to be extra scary. You know, Mr. Generic said something really smart here, and I agree with this. Mr. Generic says superstition is fun, right? Children's magic. It's valid, but not the full picture. Exactly. So when I poo-poo superstition, I want to make something really clear. Take the symbolism of superstition, and it's fine. For example, very often in my rituals or meditations or whatever, when I visualize, especially since I have a little trouble visualizing, what I'll do is I will visualize things like I see them in movies or video games or or horror movies or other superstitious things. So I will see myself, you know, if I'm charging an object with energy, I will sometimes imagine like I'm a Jedi or a Sith shooting electricity at it, you know. I will, when I visualize a spirit, sometimes I will visualize, look, I know for a fact Lucifer isn't a fallen, like cast out of heaven mythology, you know, devil, okay? I understand Lucifer to be a Christian version of the Promethean archetype. And there's so much to Lucifer that it's almost like there's times I almost wish I didn't call myself a Luciferian, even though like I am philosophically. You know, I was that before I knew what it was. And I don't mean Michael Ford's Luciferianism, not poo-pooing Michael Ford, but I was a Luciferian long before I ever heard of Michael Ford. Like it has nothing, Michael Ford did not invent Luciferian anything. He's got good material. He's got a good outlook on a lot of things. So I'm not talking down to Michael. In fact, I'd love to have him on and have a deep conversation with the guy. It's very interesting and cool. But I'm not like Michael Ford is not the high father of Luciferianism. Okay. This goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. If you know what it stems from, it has nothing to do with him. He's like he's a newer guy with a newer story of it. And I didn't even know that. So my version of Luciferianism is totally self-originating. People are like, wow, you're like a quintessential. Yeah. Well, because it's how I think. You know, I'm individualistic. I don't mean separatistic. I'm individualistic. There's a difference. When you're individualistic, you believe in the beauty of all things as themselves. And that can mean, look, you're not an individual. Look at your body. It's made of billions of trillions or whatever of cells. It's not one thing. It's a homogeny of all this stuff. And it's a constant flowing. It's a happening. Your body is not a thing, it's a happening. So but I still think of it as an individual, and I do this for everything because it's a microcosmic part of that macrocosm. So I do sometimes visualize Lucifer as that fallen angel imagery that because that speaks to me, you know. I picture this being that rebelled against that demiurge version of Yahweh, not the legit, you know, like Kabbalistic, you know, tetragrammaton or something, but the more religiosity version, the Christian religion version is a demiurge. There's no question. Demiurge as a metaphor or as an egregore or as a concept is a valid one, and it's not always evil. You know, the demiurge can be evil, or it can also be good. It can be just a well-intended artisan that crafted the universe. But because it's not perfect, because it's not the true God, its creation is flawed. That's the more tolerant view of the demiurge, or the more Platonic view of the demiurge. Whereas you have the more Gnostic view, which actually can range. Not all forms of Gnosticism say the demiurge is bad. In fact, the Gnosticism I like recognizes that the demiurge is something that manifests as a way to keep you incarnated because that's what you want. You need that challenge. And until you transcend it, you don't actually get it. So it's there. It's actually serving you, that demiurge. It's not your enemy. If you make it your enemy, that's actually an ego trap, right? So in the Gnosticism that I like, you know, I wouldn't call myself a Gnostic only because there's like so many interpretations of that, and the one that's popular is not the one that I ascribe to. But I am Gnostic in this sense, and that is, I do believe, or I do recognize the archetype of the demiurge as one of the big two that you've got to deal with. You've got the demiurge archetype, and you've got the lightbringer archetype. So one's like a Jesus or a Lucifer, they're the same guy, if they're just different expressions of it, or Prometheus or Enki, or any of those rebellious, any of those rebellious deities or primordial entities or angels that give to you forbidden knowledge and help lead you into the light of the truth. That's your Lucifer, that's your Prometheus, that's those characters, your Phosphorus. The demiurge, though, even it serves the purpose of creating the dualities of us versus them, me versus you. I'm immortal, that's a god. I'm insignificant, that's everything, right? It creates that kind of egoistic relationship, because your ego can't exist unless there's at least one other ego to compare itself to. That's one of the things about spiritual ego. And I don't mean like egotism, like you're proud of yourself too much. I mean ego in the spiritual sense, which is like a fancy word for, so your ego is not even your soul, it's a mistake. Like it's an error in judgment. Your ego is a habitual delusion that you're a separate being, separate from other things. When the reality is all of this is you, you just don't have an inside view of everything else. You have a here and now view of everything else. And this is a temporary state. You're gonna transcend this inevitably anyway, and it's not even a goal to transcend it. It's just something that is optionally going to happen to you. You're God experiencing reality through this little vessel. Chill out and enjoy it, no matter how good or bad it is. Yeah, you're still going to bitch and moan. When I stub my toe, I get mad and I curse the world and shit. I'm a human being, okay? Sometimes it fucking hurts. But sometimes I'm not a human being. Sometimes I know what I am, and I'll just laugh it off. Like, wow, that fucking hurts. That's cool, right? So when you have this realization, yes, there's absolutely a demiurge, and the demiurge is the other that makes the self more real. And you've got to learn to see the demiurge as you and Lucifer as you. And both of this is almost, I'm almost describing like, you know, a non-dual version of Zoroastrianism in a way. You have to see them both as you, and you got to bring them together in you. And you got to recognize you're the demiurge and the light bringer. You're the one who's trapping yourself and liberating yourself. And when that clicks, woohoo, you go straight to the top. It doesn't take long, you know? It really doesn't, because once your mental attachments start to dissolve, that is to say your beliefs, once your delusional beliefs start to break down because they're just not rational anymore, then the truth can start shining through and you can start to live it. And then you might have that moment of clarity, that gnosis, that transcendental click, and you let go. And in that moment, you can never go back to that. I can never. Look, there's times I question. There's times when I am in a really grounded out, like, you know, like, got to do my taxes, life sucks, blah, 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 blah. I can forget. We can all forget, because I'll sit there and I'll have gnosis. I'll be in a state of total transcendence. Everything's fantastic in that. I've got it in that moment. I'm fully, but then I come back down and it's still good for a while. But then, like I said, the taxes, life, shit happens. Next thing I know, I have a question again. Well, if I am God, how come I don't know what you're thinking like right now? And it's like, it's such a stupid question, right? It's like, once I get back to that proper state of mind, I go, that was a dumb question. Like I already know the answer. Why am I asking it again? So it's like, that's that demiurge. You're doing it to yourself, and it's not a bad thing. That's the other side of this fun equation, is that you got these religions that make it your goal in life to escape life. Like that's absurd. Like people say nirvana means you discarnate, or you die and never incarnate again. So you're saying that the universe just goes away? Because that's you too. Like, so we're not talking about you here. We're talking about, you know, when you hit that nirvana, you may or may not incarnate again. It's not about, when they say incarnate, here's maybe the problem is the difference in language. When they're saying incarnate, I mean, I know that the religions will say it means exactly what I'm saying it doesn't mean, but the deeper reading of it, incarnation doesn't mean you have a body like this. And what it means, incarnation means ego. It means delusion. It means that incarnation means that you believe that you're this, just this. Okay, that's it's difficult for people to grasp, because you're like, well, what are you saying? You know, you can discarnate anytime. In fact, you do it every night, you know. So it's not that you don't experience reality through the eyes of a human ever again. Okay? When you hit nirvana, it doesn't mean that you never see the world again. What it means is that you're no longer attached to the world. You don't see yourself as any part of that world specifically. You transcend that completely, and you're still experiencing this dimension, but you might experience others in who knows what, and you may forget again. Because forgetting is the game. That's the game, you know? Remember, let me put it this way. You know why they say that you don't incarnate anymore? Because there's no more you to incarnate. That's the right way to think of it. So it's not that you stop incarnating because you magically crack the code and you go to heaven and that's it. It actually means that you realize there's no you to incarnate. And when I say there's no you, I mean there's no individual you. There's no separate you that incarnates. And it's like, oh, well, that's good. But you see, you have to integrate that into your life fully. It's one thing to intellectually know it. It's another thing to have a Gnostic awareness of it from time to time. It's yet another thing to have that awareness all the time. That's when you get Jesus and Buddha and Bodhidharma and some of these other characters that are throughout history. Okay, that's when you get these religion starters. Okay, because you get this character that, for the most part, lives in a state of transcendence all the time, or significantly a lot of the time, and wild shit is the result. And those people's teachings become perverted and turned into orthodox religions of control. And that's that. So it's not that the teachings of the religions are necessarily bad. Wyatt wants me to talk politics. We'll see. I'm not saying no. You know, I'm not saying I don't care about politics anymore. What I'm saying is that for the most part, I'm not worried about it anymore. The stuff that is going on is fitting almost perfectly with the stuff that some of the deeper conspiracy theorists will tell you is supposed to happen. All right. Now, there's still some question. There's still stuff. There's still uncertainty. And uncertainty, you know, the irony with me is I like the unknown, but I'm not good with uncertainty. Isn't that weird? I love the unknown. I love, dark corners. I love space. I love stuff I don't know anything about. But uncertainty on this level of reality is not cool, right? It sucks. And if it's not 100% or nearabouts, I worry. Just being honest, right? And so with everything going on, I see where it's going, but anything could still happen, right? If you're tuning into me to get hope, like, your hope should not be based on an outcome. Your hope should be based on something else. If your hope is based entirely on a favorable outcome that fits exactly what you're looking for, you're probably going to be disappointed. Hope should be based on something more realistic and reasonable and attainable. Especially since I don't know for sure that even if things work out a certain way, is it going to be objectively better right away? No. In fact, let's say most of you guys, not all of you guys, most of you guys as my fan base and my friends and stuff, most of you guys are either favorable or really favorable towards MAGA and Trump. Like that's most of you, not all of you. And for those of you who are okay with me being in that direction and don't hate me for it, thank you for being my friend, because lately it's really sucks that the minute you say, well, I voted for Trump, oh, kick his ass, he's a Nazi. Or, oh, I voted for Biden, oh, kick his ass, he's a dumbass. You gotta stop that. That doesn't help anything. And I've done it too. And I'm telling you as someone who did it, not to sound like a hypocrite, you gotta stop doing it too. You've got to stop browbeating, attacking, because for the most part, all that does is drive people deeper into their tribe. Okay? The only thing you can do is set the truth free and let it be like a lion that it is. I forget which Catholic guy said that, but it's a good quote. It's not entirely true. The truth by itself isn't enough, but the truth when set free, when it's really released into the wild, that fucker cleans house, you know? And the truth is happening. The truth is outpouring all the time. And not just politically, the truth of human history. They can't keep that shit under wraps much more. I'm not saying that these guys, Randall Carlson, know it all. I'm saying that they're asking questions that the mainstream of academia just cannot answer. And this goes equally for physics, as it does for anthropology, as it does for everything. It's very plain to me that academia was co-opted a long ass motherfucking time ago. Any kind of centralized system gets co-opted right away by the powers that be. And academia was co-opted some time ago to make sure that they controlled whatever narrative their sciences and discoveries produced. And you know this to be true because in science, there's plenty of contradiction. There's plenty of cases where one group of researchers finds A and some other group finds B, and then they have to figure it out. And they will, because the way science as an organized, what's the word I'm looking for? Institution. Science as a method is golden. Science as an institution or a religion like scientism, you know what I'm going to do, right? Garbage. Fuck you. You're no better than a religion. You suck, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm sitting here in the lap of technological luxury thanks to science. I'm not talking shit about science. Science is a part of magical tradition. For those of you guys who think magic is somehow opposed to science or try to say that magic is science, that's stupid. Magic is not science. Science is a study of magic, not the other way around. Science is studying the observable manifestation of the divine, understanding how it works, because the inference is that this is a manifestation of the divine. Therefore, what it represents is the divine in some way. Not in the literal sense, but in the projected sense. This is a shadow of God, if you will. And you're that God, by the way. But this is a shadow of God, not a separate God, the all God that you are. This reality is a shadow of it. And that's a decent metaphor. It's not perfect, but it's a decent metaphor for it. And as a shadow, if you look at the shadows on a wall, you can kind of get an idea of what is casting the shadow a little bit. It gives you an insight into it. And if you use that shadow and look, trace that shadow to its source, you can start to see better things about reality. So science studying reality, the material side of reality, the material projection of reality, is really a study of God and learning the mind of God, learning the logos of God, learning the nature of God. Why do you think fucking science is saying that everything's math? Because the logos is logic, and logic, math is a form of math is a form of logic. Mathematics is a system of relationships. Fuck the notation of it. The logic of math is an absolute quality of the divine, guys. Hello? Am I talking your language here? Okay? It's an absolute part of the divine. But that doesn't mean that's what God is. God is not math. God is not a computer program. God is not a computer. But it is a simulation that you're living in. It's just not a computer-generated simulation. It has nothing to do with a bunch of circuits somewhere clicking away in another dimension or in the future and we live in an ancestor simulation. That's not what's going on. Science, the scientific community is putting out these ideas so that you don't look at the truth that was told and figured out by the metaphysical mystics of the ancient, probably from Atlantis. They figured this shit out, you know, who knows what was before Atlantis. And Atlantis is probably just one city-state of a great, vast, world-spanning empire or collection of city-states. It was, you know, don't give me this shit that like civilization started with Egypt or Sumeria. That's nonsense. That's Göbekli Tepe alone destroys that idea. No, we're talking about mysteries that were completely understood by the ancients. And when I say ancients, I'm talking pre-flood, I'm talking pre-cataclysm, I'm talking pre-Leonid meteor shower, comet hitting and wiping out, you know, everything 12,000 years ago. In that reality, that world, they had a highly developed understanding of reality itself, the metaphysical nature of reality. And, you know, I've even heard in some of the conspiracy circles that when aliens encounter humans, a common thing that happens is they want to talk about metaphysical things. They want to talk about soul and God and weird shit like that. Like, I've heard that from several people who claim to have met ETs and spoken to them through some whatever method. They're interested in spirituality and what we know of it. Not because they don't know. They want to, yeah, what do you think God is? What do you think, you know, do you have a soul? That's a creepy question because a lot of Christians have been saying that aliens are devils or something, right? So like when I was a young Christian and I heard that like aliens were asking if we had souls, I'm like, oh, they're demons, you know? No, I don't think that. I think that more than likely, if there's anything to all this ancient aliens or breakaway human civilization that predates ours, and then, you know, like there was another race of human beings before us that, you know, uplifted some other human species or something like that, you know, that whole thing, like, I don't think anybody knows. I think there's a lot of theories being flown around. So I don't want to say I agree with one or not, but there is an idea that humanity as it exists today is a hybrid. You know, it's the product of hybridization between several other independently developing primate species, and one of them was really advanced. One of them might have been at or near or even past our current level of understanding, both of life, the universe, and everything. Okay, they might have been basically aliens to us compared to what we know. And they died out in the cataclysms, or they left, or whatever happened to them, they're not here anymore, or they're hiding, or whatever. I'm not saying I believe this. I'm just saying that's one of the interpretations that I find interesting. So like the aliens are us is basically what this is saying. Those UFOs are us coming back from whatever excursion we took, or, you know, whatever it is. And that's a possibility. It really is a possibility. I don't know if I believe that. That's a little far-fetched for me, but that's on my, like, I've got a stack of maybe, like, have you guys watched me say that thing where I say, it's really a bad idea to take any idea and just throw it completely out into the garbage. What you should do is any idea that sounds cuckoo to you, if you don't like it, put it in a maybe pile, and you can have a couple, you can have like maybe, probably not, almost definitely not, come on, man. And then you have garbage. Not many things should go in the garbage. Okay, put it in one of those other piles where it's still in arm's reach, because you never fucking know. You may turn you may turn a corner and be standing there with a gray alien, you know, pointing a zapper at your head, and then you get taken in the UFO, and then what are you going to do? Oh, I don't believe you don't exist. Come on. You got to be prepared. You got to have an open mind so that when shit like that happens, yeah, your heart might be thumping out of your chest, but at least you're not going to just curl up in an ass ball and die of a heart attack. You know, you're going to be able to accept what's happening to you. And this is an important thing for a magician, because weird shit happens with magic. You'll be doing a ritual and something completely unbelievable happens. Maybe it's a little thing. You might be sitting there and say, give me a sign. And then you hear a little, on the wall, right? That's impossible. That must have been a rat. If you start thinking that way, then any utility that that sign had is gone. It probably was a rat. It probably was a pipe heating up and expanding, making a cracking noise. It probably was, but it happened in correspondence with when you asked for it. So treat that as a positive or whatever you're doing. Do that for everything in magic, but keep a rational. So while it's happening, take it at face value, but afterwards you can then go back and look and be like, okay, so that was a pipe in the wall, because I know there's a pipe right there. That was probably what that was. But it did happen right at the moment I needed it, so I'm still going to accept it, right? So you should be doing that. You shouldn't just assume that that's a poltergeist that's doing something impossible. Learn to recognize synchronicity instead. And synchronicity is a way more rational, like, middle ground, especially if you're new and you haven't seen many paranormal things yet. Synchronicity is an easy way to stay rational and not lose your mind. So when you ask for a sign, you get that click or that sound or that whatever. That's a synchronistic sign. Don't worry about how it happened. Don't worry about if it was a rat in the wall or literally a spirit going on the wall. Don't worry about that. Treat it as a synchronistic hit and be like, okay, because synchronicity, I'm telling you as a fact, it's not just because Jung said it. You know, Jung's a genius, but Jung also is like a Johnny-come-lately who kind of copy-pasted the wisdom of old philosophies and turned them into psychiatry or psychology. Keeping in mind the word psychiatry, that means spirit in the ancient tongue. So a psychiatrist is still dealing with spiritual subjects. It's the root word of psychiatry is spirituality. It's really funny, okay? So Jung basically took, you know, these old ideas and then put them through a more rational filter and spit out this psychology spirituality. And that's why it resonates so well with magicians and occultism and spiritual and mystical philosophies, because it's literally based on that. It's where it comes from. Like he didn't invent half that shit. He interpreted it. So synchronicity is just his word for omen or sign. It's no different. He just put a new word on it so it's more palatable to modern minds. And he reframed it a little bit. I'm not gonna at all deny that. He definitely changed what it means a little bit. But it still means basically the same thing. Synchronicity is a sign. It's an omen. It is a communication from the higher self through the lower self's correspondence with the event that you're, and it could be over something stupid. It could be literally be like, oh, I was thinking about like the Rice-A-Roni theme song, and then all of a sudden, you know, my mom, you know, out of the blue is like, I got this extra box of Rice-A-Roni. Do you want it? You know, and it sounds stupid. Like, how is that anything mystical by the universe? But that's actually the universe telling you that you're in alignment with it. Because if you can, when you start having this premonition-like state of awareness, you know that you're in the right, you're more aligned with the truth, because your mind is aligned. Your personal microcosm is more attuned to that macrocosm and not ignorant of it. And so you start to, predict's the wrong word. It's more like you're going with it. And so it looks like a prediction. So you start having these predictions. That means you're lined up with the absolute truth. And it starts clicking and woo, and you just start having all these experiences. And then it'll stop because you might get a little too full of yourself, or you're, you know, you start thinking you're the powerful thing. And by that, I don't mean you, God. I mean you, D.H. Thorne, you, Almanac, or whatever your name is. You start thinking you're the one. You know, Neo is not the one, but Neo is the one. Isn't that funny? Yeah, well, figure that one out. I said that wrong. Neo is not the one, but the one is Neo. You are not God, but God is you. Just all you got to do is switch the words around a little bit, and suddenly it makes sense. You are not the universe, but the universe is you. Right? Semantics, but it's got a deeper meaning. Good philosophy is semantical. Right? Excuse me. It's not semantical, but Good semantics make good philosophy. A good understanding, a good command of semantics makes good philosophy. All right, let me scroll here. I got a new super. Gar says, with a big old 20 spot from Canada, thank you, Gar. He says, just coming in on this, and hopefully you'll stay for my response to it. But to me, deities and spiritual entities by their very nature are, if not extraterrestrial, then extra-dimensional at the very least. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you, and you're going to love this, okay? There is no question that this is where, from our material frame of reference, there is a multiverse. There's no question at all. There's absolutely no doubt, because even if it's not something really quantum weird where there's like probability, like, you know, like the many worlds interpretation of quantum, there is a multiverse, even if only for the simple fact that if there's only the one universe and it's not like multiple layers of universe, let's say there's just one big expanse of space that goes on forever. There's only so many configurations matter can have, so that means eventually it starts to repeat. So you've immediately got a multiverse. And if there's even a chance that matter and energy can be configured to look like Zeus hurling lightning bolts, it'll do it. So that means, yes, somewhere in the multiverse, everything you can reasonably imagine almost certainly exists. The only caveat would be, is there a infinite multiverse in space and time, or is there a multiverse in which even the laws of nature, laws is such a nonsense word, where even the observed laws of nature can be different? If that's true, like if gravity can be a pushing force instead of a pulling force, for example, then all kinds of weird shit changes. Like suddenly stars are inverted, like they push things away instead of like you get some weird things happen. Okay, so if there's a multiverse where the laws of nature can be different, then not only could you potentially have Zeus, it might literally be Zeus on Mount Olympus with everything you imagine, teleporting, lightning bolts, all of it. The whole mythology could be true in the multiverse somewhere. Now, my point though is not to see, that's a very egoistic and materialistic mentality to require that, or to say that's how it has to, or to say that's the real Zeus even. Because that's not the real Zeus either. Zeus is a mask. It's a metaphor, a symbolic, and I'm putting this out to all deities, all of them. Every single deity that has ever been described by any religion, when you learn the symbolism of that deity, you recognize that it is a metaphor or a symbolic representation of a divine archetype. And an archetype is not a person. The divine is impersonal, but it personifies itself in this manifested thing. And it doesn't mean that these deities have to be physical. It doesn't mean that they have to even have a form that you recognize. Consciousness or awareness or self-awareness in a localized way doesn't need a body, and it doesn't need a shape. It doesn't need a sound. It doesn't need any of the things that you consider material, because that's all material. When you say, I went into the spirit world and I saw such and such. Okay. What you saw was an avatar for such and such. You didn't see the actual what it looks like, because things don't look like anything. God doesn't look like anything. None of God's masks look like anything. But God does have because you're God, God does have a visual perception of itself, but it's not what you think it is. And that's why it gets really trippy. One of the areas that I disagree with a lot, and when I say disagree, I don't mean hard disagree. I see it differently with most metaphysical traditions, is they act as if there is the logos reality, in other words, the unseen logic, archetypes, aspects, the fuzzy things that then give rise to more and more material things, like emanating out of it. Like everything is a layer on top of something. That is, as someone who's gone through those barriers a bunch of times, that's to me, because they're not barriers, they're not levels, they're not layers, they are degrees of conscious expansion and contraction, a spectrum of color, if you will. So the material dimensions are, now this is a lot to unpack, so forgive me if I'm going to go on a tangent here. You hear it said all the time in New Age metaphysics that the material world is just light at a slow vibration. It's actually the other way around. It would be light at a higher vibration, but we won't get into that. Light at a higher frequency, to the point where you take gamma rays, you pump them up with so much energy that their wavelengths contract and contract until they become a singularity. Bang, now you've got a particle. That's what's happening. That's not what quantum is still waiting to prove that, or they're starting to just start. We're talking about hard light, like Green Lantern. That's literally like what this is. That's what this is. It's hard light, but it's not light reduced down to like below microwaves or below radio waves. It's like that would be flattening it to the point where it doesn't even wiggle anymore. That would be empty space. Hello? Who's that preacher who does that? Hello all the time. The farting preacher. I feel like I'm going to be farting preacher for the rest of this one. Yeah. So material reality isn't light slowed down to a flat pancake, that's the empty space around you. That's still full of stuff. It's just, there's nothing that you can see now. Matter is light brought together into once that wavelength of gamma goes below the Planck length, you get a singularity particle. Bang, there. Here's your subatomic particle. And someday I hope science proves that, because I can almost guarantee you that's what's happening. I don't have the math. It's just considered an intuitive understanding. Okay. It's pretty wild when you start to think about it. This is also why you see, in the jets of black holes, you see particles forming out of nothing, okay? Because it's literally light that has been pumped up so much. Well, it's matter and light, but it's literally light energy. It's electromagnetic energy that has been compactified so much that it goes poof and becomes a proton. And a proton is hydrogen. One proton is an ion of hydrogen. Doesn't need an electron to be considered hydrogen. So poof, you've got hydrogen. That's why you have these hydrogen jets, because it's literally just twisting up that energy and turning it into such a tight little packet that it becomes a poop and it turns into a thing. Okay, so now that I've explained that, the idea that God or the divine is somehow like with its like mind has this idea of it, and then that idea it projects as a vision, because you'll notice in magical traditions it goes material reality. Actually, there's below material reality, but let's just say material reality as you know it, and then above that is the etheric plane. That's that energy body. That's that life energy. That's that soul energy. That's the aura that you see. Okay. And you got a layer above that. Now, there's a lot more in some traditions. I'm going to keep it simple to 3. The next one above that is that spiritual layer, which is what it looks like, not what it sounds like, or sound a little bit. Yeah, it's what you see and what you hear. So in the spiritual realm, sight is the most powerful sense, and then it goes down from there. So you have the spiritual realm at the sweet spot is all visual. The closer you get to the material, the more it becomes sensual with, touch, taste, hearing, all that shit. But right at that sweet spot, that's like dreams. Like when you're having a dream, that's that sweet spot of spiritual reality. But as you start going higher, it starts becoming invisible again. It starts becoming invisible and becomes less and less visual and becomes more and more logical, logos, just data. And then above that is the totality, which is this blinding infinity of being. And that's what all that data is as one thing. But the mistake is to think that somehow those visions create the ether, and that ether creates the physical, and then that physical creates the nothing. And no, these are degrees of manifestation. These are degrees of revelation. When the divine is in its most divine state, it doesn't see anything. It just exists and knows it exists. That's it. It's resting, if you will. It's just in perfect serenity and bliss, and it's like in the abyss, and that's it. A blinding abyss, a blinding light that looks black, because you know what I mean? That's why they call Kether a blinding light, not like a bright light that's just, ooh, look, bright light. It's blinding light to the point of blackness, like you don't see anything, right? That's why it's such a mind fuck when you read it. It's why you can't go there without, losing yourself in it. And you can go there and come, we're not going to get into that today. So the absolute itself, the divine, doesn't look like anything to itself. In order to see itself the way it sees itself through our eyes, it doesn't like puff out reality into more and more physical dimensions. That implies a certain degree of knowability to the divine, and that's not appropriate. What's really going on, and this is, I guess, just my opinion, but it's opinion based on I know it from my experience. Okay. It is more like how you focus a lens. Okay. It doesn't change what's there. It just changes how you resolve what's there. Imagine everything that you can imagine all at once. What does it look like? A blinding nothing. Well, now I want you to start zooming in on that infinity. And it's going to look like nothing for a long time as you zoom in, because infinity is pretty big, right? But at some point, as you zoom into infinity, you're going to start seeing something. It may not be something rational. It may not be something you can see. It maybe just looks like a mist or a static or a fog or something. And when I say see, I don't just mean with your eyes. I mean with whatever sense. So you begin to witness something resembling a detail. And that detail gets into more and more clarity until eventually you can start picking out little differentiated motes of self. And then it becomes more, and eventually patterns start to become apparent. And then, oh my goodness, look, a universe. I see a section of a universe. Like here's a couple of galaxies. Oh, look, a galaxy. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. And eventually you see the self as the mortal self, as a human. But it's not even that, because one of the harder questions that I have to ask myself, it's one of the things that I'm still working on a little bit. If the divine looking at itself sees what I'm seeing, well, that means that what I'm seeing as an experience can be seen on all levels, right? It doesn't mean that it's just limited to this material state. I should say the faculty of sight is not limited to this mortal state. The specificity, however, may be. So, like there's a way of putting it, the contents of what I see may be unique to my incarnate state. In other words, tables, chairs, colors, rainbows, etc. But the context of sight is not unique to my mortal state. The context of sight can actually go above and beyond what I normally am aware of. Now, I know this because in certain Gnostic moments, deep transcendental states, I've seen things that I cannot see now. And what I mean by that is I've seen shapes like four-dimensional cubes. I didn't see that goofy little thing. I saw it the way it is. But I don't remember it because it don't fit in this apparatus. I can't imagine it with this. I had to come out of this and see it with a higher dimension sense. So I can't, this is why it's kind of pointless to me even to say that I did it. Because if I say, well, why don't you describe it? I can't. I understand it better than I did before. When I see those little, I get it better. I get what that thing is. I don't know the math, but I get it. And I get how it turns into a 3D shape. And I get how a 3D shape casts a two-dimensional shadow. And it's like shadows of higher dimensions, guys. It's not just a way of saying it. It's pretty good. But it's a lens. It's it's not that, this is why I don't like to say that God emanated reality, because emanation gives us this idea that this is really what it is. It's too materialistic in my book. Rather, I prefer to describe it as an infinity on multiple dimensions, not one, not two, not three. Well, hold on, actually, there's actually a way that it's zero dimensional. This is probably gonna be above most people's pay grade. If you're familiar with Stephen Hawking, he basically described that the irony is that information is probably stored on a 2D brain, not a 3D brain. In other words, information is not three-dimensional, it's two-dimensional. A good example of this is given, I think it was Arvin Ash. There's a guy, I think it was Arvin Ash. I could be wrong about that. Had a video, but there's this understanding that, take a sphere, right? Take the volume of a sphere. You can fit a lot of shit in a sphere. And let's say that information it doesn't have a dimension. Think about it. Information takes up no space. The notation of information does, but information itself doesn't actually take up space. Information's spaceless. It's the logos. It's spaceless. And so it projects. It doesn't take up space. So it projects. So it projects onto surfaces. I remember where I saw it now. It was in a Donald Hoffman video. That's what it was. It was Donald Hoffman doing a video for Science and Non-duality. He did a great job on this one, because I've always liked him, but I think he's starting to get it. Like, he's getting more mystical. I really like seeing it. And he talked about how, so Hawking basically showed that it's better to think of information as being something on a two-dimensional plane, not as a three-dimensional object. And it's interesting because you can actually fit more information in that way than you could if it was a three-dimensional thing. Because you're dealing with surface area. And so you can fit, let's say you had information that takes up 1 centimeter of space. Now, 1 centimeter cubed takes up more space than two-dimensional centimeter. So information stored as a two-dimensional notation, you can fit a whole fuck ton of that on the outside of a sphere more, if they're 1 centimeter squares than if they're cubes of 1 centimeter size. So that means the surface area of that sphere can hold more information than its volume does. So you got that sphere, bang, that's a lot of information. It's not infinite, but it's a lot. Well, guess what? You can now take that sphere, and now you can fill that sphere with more spheres. You can fill it up with spheres, increasing its surface area exponentially every time you go down a level, to the point where you get infinite potential. So you can potentially store an infinite amount of information in a sphere, or very near anyway, because you can just keep making it smaller and just keep filling in all the space with more two-dimensional spheres. Like, two-dimensional sphere is a hard thing for people to understand, because a sphere is a three-dimensional object, but the surface of it is two-dimensional, if you will. So all these two-dimensional spheres filling up this first sphere, you can fit an infinity, and it's the holographic principle. Look up the holographic principle. So it can contain itself, and it's just nuts. When you understand this, you go, so that means three-dimensional reality that I see probably isn't real. It's probably a three-dimensional projection in my mind's eye of an actual something that's two-dimensional. Like, we live on the surface of a brain. And I don't mean a brain like I mean a brain like a membrane. So the divine on some level is two-dimensional. Well, that means you can probably actually reduce it to one-dimensional too, because you can make You can pull that and just make it a one-dimensional thing that just looks two-dimensional because it's woven together like a thread. You can reduce that down to 0 dimension too, but that's a little harder of a jump, but you can. So I guess the point I'm making is that you can transcend so much of this stuff, and you can put down so much. But at the end of the day, when a train comes, you still get out of the way, don't you? Right? So don't lose the fact that right now, whatever the truth is, it's unknowable. It's not knowable at all. The absolute truth, and when I say it's not knowable, I mean intellectually knowable. It's not something you can ever write a description for and be correct. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The divine cannot be defined. It cannot be described. It cannot be modeled. It cannot be proven or disproven. It simply is. And it is the only is that is. It's an is, it's not a it. It's an is. Because an it implies thingness. It's an is. It just is. Everything else is something that it is. And it's mind-blowing. This is why, like, this to me is way better, way cooler, way more interesting, way more uplifting, way more enlightening, way more just like this is the stuff that keeps you up at night. You know, like spirits and telepathy and all this spooky cool shit. That's cool. But that's a little tiny, like the whole totality of wonder that I'm describing. Telekinesis and magic and devils and deities and Mount Olympus and your bullshit, the aliens. That's a postage stamp on the biggest galaxy in the universe. That's like the equivalent of how important it is, or how much it matters to the grand scheme. It's more interesting than, like, you know, doing your taxes. But it's not like this is, so that's why I say, like, superstition's fine as a symbol. All this stuff is fine as a symbol. And you can look at the gods like, yes, they're in the multiverse, they exist somewhere, and you can connect to them. That's why I put in my last video, instead of thinking it like you're conjuring the spirit to you, think of it more like your consciousness is shifting to a dimension of the multiverse where they can exist in a way that you can recognize. And if you're down here at the basic level, it's going to be smoke, it's going to be weird noises, it's going to be mind's eye. And maybe if you're a high enough level, maybe you do see King Paimon walk through your living room with a cigar. Maybe. I haven't seen stuff like that much. I've gotten close. I've seen weird stuff I can't explain. Figures, characters, things moving, glowing things, missing time, really crazy shit. But I can't repeat it, so I am obviously not that kind of a master, and I don't really care to be, because you don't have to be. If I can go to them, it's good enough, because there is no here. Here's just an idea. So if I can go to them, there's really no going to them. It's literally, I'm just centering my consciousness in a way that I can comprehend them. And that's enough. I don't have to, this idea that you have to see the deity as it really is and smell its breath, that's a parlor trick. It's fun. It looks cool. And if you can get to do it, I'd love to hear about your method and learn it for myself. But that's not the point of this. And it doesn't make you better, because you can have that, but maybe you can figure out the technique to create a portal and, you know, literally have the deity come through or the demon come through or whatever, and take literally a physical body made of atoms and matter, and you can fuck it and talk to it and have it shoot lightning bolts at you. That's really fucking cool. Do you know your God, though? Do you? Because unless you know that other shit, that's just playing a video game. It's cool. I'm into it. I'd love to see it. But it's not, you're not winning the game. You haven't figured out the most compelling thing yet. Now, if you did both, then hell yeah, sign me up. I want to hear from you. But I can usually tell within 3 seconds whether someone, you know, I get these messages. Thorne, you're not a real occultist. You've never met the true Lucifer. I've had him in my living room and blah, 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 blah. And anytime, like, just immediately I know that I'm dealing with a loony. And one of my favorite things to do is be like, all I want you to do is send me a picture of your living room. Don't even send me a picture of the spirit. You know why? Because it's probably going to be a fucking meth den. It's probably going to be their mama's basement. It's probably going to be something like, this is just LARPing, and it's obvious. Those people who can achieve those things, if they exist, they're not telling. They're not talking. You're not going to find it in any book. EA's not telling you. S. Connolly's not telling you. I'm not telling you. If it exists, it's like locked up in the basement of the Vatican or some shit. You know what I mean? You're never going to get access to it. You know, think of it this way. What is the most advanced magical technology we have access to in this world? Stuff from like the Victorian era. And a lot of the stuff from the Victorian era is just regurgitation and commentary on shit from medieval and earlier. Has anybody come up with anything better than the ancients? No. Not me. No, but all I do is commentary on ancient philosophy. I don't invent. I interpret, I comment, I augment, like I have my own view, which is called manifestationism, but manifestationism is really just a part, and I found this out later. Manifestationism is just a part of what can be found in Hindu metaphysical philosophy. Advaita Vedanta, I like that. Advaita Vedanta. What do you call a new age chick with a fat ass? Advaita Vedanta, baby. Woo! Can I get a thumbs up for that one? That's cracking me up. Advaita Vedanta. Someone put that in the quotes channel on my Discord. Advaita Vedanta. So in Advaitanism, there is basically the same thing as I call manifestationism, which is this understanding that nothing is changing, nothing is moving. The absolute is perfectly static still and does not have time, it doesn't have space, none of that. It manifests all those things as it reduces its awareness of itself to a mortal state and then shifts that conscious center around itself, that illusion, creating the illusion of time, space, movement, cause and effect, all of it. It's manifestationism in a nutshell. And that's just a part of Advaita Vedanta, not Advaita Vedanta, but damn, that's funny. I love it. Okay, so I'm ranting like a motherfucker. I haven't even like looked at questions in a while. Whew. All right, taking a breath. Wyatt liked Advaita Vedanta. Woo. All right, let me take a breath. Atropa says, he was in my room. All right, I'm not gonna be able to catch up with all of these. I'm gonna pick a spot. I think what I'll do, because you guys have been chatting away and I haven't been following along, and there's a lot of comments here after Gar. Slim Lewis says, I'm extremely far from supporting MAGA and Trump, and at the same time, don't care if someone does. No judgment. I'm also not a Biden DNC. Yeah, of course. Well, I want to be clear, Slim. For purposes of semantics, you can say I support Trump. But ultimately, to me, Trump is a means to an end. And that end is the end of the New World Order system in America. Now, is it possible that he's all part of the show and he's not a good guy and he's part of the New World Order? If that's the case, then I humbly accept my lumps and I'll eat my hat when it comes out true. I am not a dogmatist. I don't worship his ass, but I will say that if I'm choosing between what we have or any other option that is viable, or him, choosing him as a matter of survival at this point. I don't want to go into the Great Reset. Now, after Trump comes along and sweeps the house clean, if that happens, which I think it will, it's going to be quite the fireworks over the next couple of years, guys. If you guys trust my judgment at all on anything, I've been right. Maybe not completely as a matter of degrees, but matter of direction. I've been right this whole time. I've told you guys it's going to get more and more surreal as time goes. I thought we were going to have a bigger, like off a cliff moment sometime over the last 12 months, and we kind of didn't. I mean, we've just kind of had a steady slide off the cliff. But very soon, there's going to be a as a Christian would put it, a come to Jesus moment. There's going to be a moment soon where, like, you're going to be worried if you're not already. Like, I see it, some people are like, Thorne, you said it was going to be surreal, and it is. I'm like, yeah, not to me. Like, this isn't surreal yet. If you think this is the surreality I was talking about, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm talking dollar collapse. I'm talking crazy shit. That's all slated to happen. Will it be prevented? I doubt it. Because the dollar collapse is inevitable at this point. It's inevitable. Will it collapse into its own footprint in a way where we all go Weimar Germany? No, I don't think so. I think that what they're gonna do is they could collapse that shit, and then they're gonna at the same time be like, hey, we got a solution, that we have the central digital banking currency and we can control the system and fix it. You might have a few months, you might have some issues with your payments, but we're going to fix it. And yeah, America's not going to be the number one, economic power much longer because of reasons. But America, we got a lot of friends, and, that's the globalist side. That's the New World Order solution. The Trump solution probably is going to be something to do with gold, silver, or something. It's probably going to be a different restructuring. They're probably going to finally audit Fort Knox and see it's fucking empty and has been for like 50 years and be like, uh-oh, we just have fucking can openers in there or something. Like, it's going to be kind of wild, but I suspect something crazy is going to happen with that. That's what something in that direction is what I see. Specifically, I can't say, because as a prophetic person, I don't like saying I'm a prophet or anything, but as somebody who has an intuitive sense of things, I can't tell you specifically what's going to happen. I can just tell you the direction. I can give you the context, not the content. That's a spiritual view. Spiritual views are contextual, not contentual. Content is your subjective interpretation. Context, though, is a given. Contextually speaking, I know where this is going, and I see where it's probably going to end up. And it's going to hurt. Even if the good guys win, it's gonna fucking hurt. It already hurts. It's gonna hurt more, because the powers that be are not gonna relent. They're not gonna be like, hey, Trump won the election, I guess we gotta give up now. No, they're gonna fucking try World War III if it's not already happening. They're gonna try everything to stay out of getting hung. Literally hung. They'll probably try to cut a deal when all is said and done. Or maybe they can't. Maybe there's no chance for a deal. And so they will bring us right to the brink. That's probably why things have been going the way they're going, is because instead of saying, hey, let's round up all these bad guys and put them in jail, the minute you do that, their dead man switches go off and viruses get released and blackmail gets popped off. Everything happens, and the whole world just collapses in war and chaos. That's not a solution. That's like killing yourself to stop the enemy from winning. What my hope and prediction, but when I say prediction, I mean it's not 100%. My prediction is that the outpouring is going to continue. And by outpouring, I mean spiritual Aquarius outpouring. I mean ancient aliens or prehistory outpouring. But I really mean also an outpouring of revelation, quite literally, like in the Bible, revelation of that which is running things, and has been for before any of us were ever even thought of being born. Now, look, is that the most grounded take? No, it doesn't fly with people who have a normie kind of mindset, right? If you go to somebody who's not aware of the conspiracy theories going on, if you go, they're not gonna see it that way. They're like, well, you know, because they take everything at face value based on what the television tells them. And the more informed ones still do that because they're still stuck in that matrix paradigm. Once you start to, occultism will reveal this to you. Once you start learning the symbolism of occultism and then look at the ones using it in society, you start to see things that other people don't. You're like, well, why are they? Oh, I get it. Yep, okay. You know what I'm saying? If you're stuck in this matrix of materialistic reality that they want you to be embedded in, because that's what they want. Why do you think that they push it so hard? Why do you think everything is so secular now? Why do you think spirituality has been neutered? Why do you think that magic, you've been shown this Harry Potter version and stuff like the Kabbalion, well, not the Kabbalion because it's kind of garbage. I meant to say the Picatrix. Stuff like the Picatrix is like ignored. I don't have it right here. Stuff like the Picatrix is no longer, like they don't like go, here, check this out. They don't put that in movies. Except when they do, it's hidden behind symbolism. Take the Dark Crystal. I mean, really, Dark Crystal's like the best. Take Dune. There's so many of these things that the occult truth is hidden in plain sight, especially if you know where to look. Take like The Wizard of Oz. Like that's celebrated as an occult classic. And if you don't know that, look it up. It's mind-blowing. Dark Crystal's another one. Star Wars. Joseph Campbell got together with Lucas and basically gave him an amalgamated comparative religion of the future that incorporates predominantly Taoism. Mostly, you know, Eastern philosophy and Taoism specifically. It's almost like Taoism like 2.0. So that it's all there. But the last 20 years or so, they've really kind of neutered it out. They've really pulled out the essence of spirituality and magic from things and cast it aside and made it superhero pablum. So the future generations looking into magic won't believe in it because you can't use it to make a magic carpet that shoots lightning bolts. Because they're going to be convinced that that's what magic is supposed to be. See, they change the definitions. They change the meaning of words. They change how we interpret things so that we lose what they're supposed to mean. As an occultist and a philosopher, and if you start looking at the meaning of words and how they've changed over thousands of years, and you realize that the original meaning of those words are so deeply mystical in so many cases. When you call somebody a person, I've said this so many times, I'm sure wise people are like, you said this before. When you call somebody a person, the word person goes back to ancient Greece, probably before, but back to ancient Greece, the word persona. Persona means mask. It literally means mask because it was a mask worn by actors. And it had a mouthpiece in it that helped project your voice. So your person, you as a person are a mask. A mask for what? Well, the mystics back then knew. The average person might have known. We don't know that because the academics don't. They look at everything. When they teach you about what the ancients believed, they feed you this cock and bull kamemi story, this bullshit fucking story about, well, you know, they didn't understand science, and so they attributed things to God, and that God was lightning in the sky, and that they worship. They're so full of shit. They have no idea what the, yeah, sure, maybe Farmer Joe living at that time had a theistic, superstitious mentality. Okay, he was uneducated. His role was to make the food. He didn't have to know the meaning of the universe. But the people who created the myths and the traditions and the mystery fucking schools, they knew. They knew everything I'm telling you. They might have had a different way of telling it to you. They might have different nuances, sure. But the fundamental things I'm telling you, they knew probably even better than I do. Probably way better. So over time, they distort that hidden truth. They keep it occulted from you by layering this bullshit on it. And you're seeing them do it now, the way they change the meaning of words like gender words and shit. Fuck off. You got to put your foot down and be like, stop changing our language like this. Stop changing definitions. I don't mean that like just in that petty little LGBT versus conservative asshole. Fuck that. I don't even mean that. I'm just using that as an example because it's prominent right now. I mean that about everything. They're changing the definitions of words to suit them. And they do it in such nefarious, insidious ways that you don't even notice it. They do it in your culture. They do it in your movies, in your fiction. They do it in your truth. When they say science says this, that's academia. That's not science. Science isn't saying that. Academia is. And academia is a centralized authoritarian system that's a form of sophistry. It's literally saying the authorities say. Well, that's an appeal to authority. That's not real. Neil deGrasse Tyson gives me such a fucking pain in the ass. I mean, I liked him when he first came out, but he gives me such a pain in the ass. He talks down to everybody worse than I do. Haha, you can laugh with me. It's fine. He talks down to people worse than I do. And he does it in such a close-minded way. He's a disinformation agent. That's literally, he might not even know it, but that's what he does. He carries the party line of the intellectual That's what he does. And he will never encourage you to pursue mystical questions. He will discourage you at every turn. Unlike Sagan, actually, who was his mentor, which is really despicable. Sagan never would have been so dead about it. Oh, it's all just dead things bumping together. That's all. All reality is just quantum dead things. What the fuck, dude? You see, the powers that be, they want to take the age of Aquarius, the shift that we're all going through. They want to own it just like they own the Piscean shift, just like they own the shift of Aries and the shift of everything. They've owned it was harder in the past after the fall of Atlantis, but they kept the technique. They just shifted it around a little bit. And wherever there was centers of civilization, every time that they had a shift in the age, they had some event that they used to keep power for themselves and keep the average person in the dark. Now, here's where people who don't like Trump's going to like what I'm going to say. Do I think Trump's going to reveal the secrets of magic and mysticism? No. The only difference is, under the Trump paradigm, there's a way out for everybody, because it's going to be that open air, free range tax farm like we've had in the past. That's all the difference. And that's a huge fucking difference, because so much of the Great Awakening, that outpouring, requires that little bit of breathing room for us to think and talk. If we go into that globalist nightmare, sooner or later, they're going to crack down on me whether I talk politics or not, because I'm talking about stuff that challenges the fucking secular authorities, the secular establishment of intellectual, academia. How dare you challenge with your misinformation about magic, Thorne? Do you have a license to practice with the Goetia? Trust me, that's what's coming if you keep going down this idiotic path that so many people are going down. That's why I'm telling you, if you don't like Trump, it's in your interest to still back him anyway. I'm just saying, if for no other reason, you're not, otherwise you might as well just give up completely and don't even talk about it, because there is no third choice yet. Not yet. There will hopefully be one, but right now there isn't. You literally have, this group wants to eat me. This group might be a bunch of fucking conservative dicks, but at least they're not trying to eat me. Because the other side's literally trying to fucking eat you. If you look at what they're doing, they're literally planning. Just trust me, you don't even want to know. That's not just crazy talk. They're depopulating you as we speak with, all right, Susan Wojcicki, this is all entertainment. Relax. I don't mean any of this. I'm making this up. So don't cancel me, bro. They're depopulating you now. What do you think they're doing? And why are they doing it? No, they're not doing it because of the reasons Alex Jones says. If that's a reason, that's one part of it. It's not the total reason. You know why they're depopulating us? Why they have a plan so that by the 2040s, fertility will be completely in the toilet? Trump's not talking about that, is he? So I have my suspicions about him too. I may prefer him, but I do suspect. Is he talking about that? Well, one could say no because he doesn't want to sound crazy. Okay. Or maybe he doesn't know. Or maybe he doesn't mind that part. Possible. Maybe I'm stupid for following that because it doesn't matter which I follow. We're going into this anyway. Some people that I'm close friends with believe that. And so they think it's silly to care either way. I get that. I don't think that way because I can't. You know, as I deal with what I know. Not with, I don't second guess like that. It's possible, you're right. And I'm not such a dogmatist. I'm gonna say that could never, Trump is a saint, you asshole. No. I think that's a valid perspective. I disagree, but if it happens, I'm gonna sit there and say, I knew it, motherfucker. You know, like I'm not gonna deny it when it happens. Notice I said when, not if. I'm not gonna deny it when it happens. Because I don't know. But, so here's the reason they're depopulating us. It has nothing to do with, well, I shouldn't say nothing. So the going reason in the conspiracy flat earth circles is that they want to depopulate us so we're easier to control. That's always a given, okay? But the bullshit is that they're going to do it with like these big cataclysmic events that wipe out huge portions at once. You know, like in the span of a year, like with viruses and shit, because then they've got to deal with that. And they could lose control of that very easily. If they do it that way, you're going to have piles of bodies, all rotting, spreading disease. You're going to have cities that are hollow. And then what are they going to do with it? No, they want to gradually bring us into control. It's going to take a couple generations, and they're doing it with fertility. Okay, so they're reducing us with fertility and little things, little mega deaths, little hits from now and then, a little Kofifi now and then, a little bit of war, a little bit of this. Oh, we found out plastics do this. We're sorry. Little shit like that. You know, 100 million here, you know, a billion there. No, it wouldn't be even a billion. It'd be like a couple million at a time. And they just keep trimming, keep decimating, keep shrinking, all while the fertility thing does its thing. Look up Dr. I can't never remember her first name or her last name, Swan. Look up Dr. Swan fertility. Just Google Dr. Swan fertility and whatever video pops up, start there and follow that rabbit hole. And then call me in the morning crying because you're going to go, oh my God, I had no idea. They're really doing it. And it's pretty much unstoppable because it's in the environment at this point. You have microplastics in your body right now, and you wonder why everybody's fat and everybody's having these hormonal gender issues. Why everybody seems to be expressing more instances of, especially men, of hormonal shifts that are making everybody fat, round, right? Trust me, look it up. Look at what these hormonal things do to you. Starting at a certain generation and when plastics became so common, and I can't say certain things because I'm on YouTube, the V word, not that that by itself is bad. That thing it's a great technology, but it's being used for other things. I'm pretty sure. And I don't even put it all in that. Fuck that. Let's say that that's holy. Let's say that the V is that's the most holy thing humans ever invented because I don't want Pfizer to deplatform me, bro. So it's the greatest thing ever. Fuck it. That's the best. But DuPont's plastic? Nobody cares if I attack plastic. I'm going to attack plastic because that's obvious. And when they give you the V, it's in a plastic thing, isn't it? Isn't it? Hope you guys are getting my point. I don't care what you're saying. Some people probably agree with me. Some people disagree. I'm not even reading the chat now. I'm ranting like I had a lot of caffeine. I feel good. Hope you guys are having fun with me. I'm having fun. So yeah, that's what they're doing. So why, Thorne? You haven't said why. You've described all these modalities and mechanisms. Why? If it's not just for control, why else? What other reason could they have? Have you guys been watching what's been happening with AI lately? Do you think that that's really cutting edge, or is that what they're releasing? Do you really think that the best they have is ChatGPT or Midjourney? Do you think that's the best thing DARPA's got? You think that's the best fucking thing the secret labs got? These subterranean aliens or whoever the fuck. You really think the best we got is ChatGPT? Come on, don't be stupid. That is such a game changer in technology. There's no way government would ever let it out unless they already owned it lock, stock, and barrel and had it figured out to the T 50 years ago. There's no way they would let that shit out. They would be seizing that right now if it was organically being created by that guy, that group of people. Think about it. You think that they don't have a gun to the guy's head on some level? They're fucking publicly, give me a fucking break. There's no way. So anyway, I'm getting angsty because it's just, I'm tired of stupid people that don't see the forest for the trees. People who are so fucking gullible that think that the shit that they're fed is real, that it's what it looks like, that this is that the front facing thing that you're getting is the reality. You're getting what they want you to know, because if you knew the whole show, you'd stop playing right away. I don't know what you'd do. You might go crazy. I know I feel crazy sometimes. It's very hard to know these things and walk around. That's why they used the picture for this video of Mel Gibson looking at people like this. When somebody's trying to talk to me about sports and I see society collapsing. It's like, dude, like, it's fine. I don't mind playing in the Matrix, right? I don't mind. Like, it's a fun game, but I know it's not real, and that makes it hard sometimes. Like, when I got to do my taxes, I just want to... When I know the alternative that's out there, I go, you bastards. You fucking, it's just lie after lie. So what does AI have to do with it, Thorne? Because they knew, if you read your sci-fi, if you read your history, if you look at the history of these things a little bit, you see that they've been talking about this time coming, for at least 100 years. And they were preparing our collective conscious for the day when automation replaces us. They've been preparing us for that for the last 100+ years. They probably, maybe aliens, maybe ourselves from the future, our more advanced versions, interdimensional version, I don't care, wherever they got it from, they knew it was coming well over 100 years ago. I know I can't prove it, but it's obvious when you look at the progression of how they're unfolding things and telling you things, how it's being just drip dropped into society and culture, into fiction and in politics every year until now. We're reaching that threshold, that revelation, that full disclosure threshold. And what's going to happen is sometime in the next, anytime between now and 2100, the AI is going to be incarnated. So right now it's going to start putting creatives out of work. That's the next phase. People like me, maybe not right away, but eventually as an author, ChatGPT could write Thorne's next book. And it'd probably be pretty close to what I would write. Check out what Eddie and people are doing. We're going to be doing a live stream about it soon. They're creating a bot for the Discord that's going to basically mimic me. And it's doing a pretty good job of it already. It's not, you can tell the difference, but it doesn't say things. I don't disagree with what it says. Not much. Like I can pick a few things out and say I disagree with that line, but it's describing non-dual philosophy pretty good. Pretty good. Like it knows it. Scary because it draws upon the collective knowledge of mankind through the internet. It's got a database of everything. I don't have that. I've just got me. So AI is going to be replacing maybe replacing is a strong word, because at first you're going to need people who use the AI to create. So you'll still need people with vision, artistic skill, and creative skill. You still need that. It's the tool is getting upgraded, right? For now. So it's going to start replacing the nitty gritty programmers, the nitty gritty this, the nitty gritty artists, the blah, blah, blah. They're going to start getting pushed further and further into the quaint section of creativity. Just like today, you've got people who still paint with acrylics, but nobody really cares about that. They want the digital because it's everywhere. But those handful of people who paint the right way can charge 10 times more for their work because nobody does it anymore hardly, right? So people like that will continue to exist, but it's going to shrink as an industry. And AI is going to take, someday you're going to be able to just talk to your microphone. Computer, I would like to play the ultimate space video game with this, and this. And you'll go away for a day and it'll crank away on your computer and you'll come back and there's the game of your dreams and you won't even have to wait for a developer to make it. Wyatt, you'll be alive to see that for sure. I hope I am, because that sounds like fun, but you'll be alive to see it. And I can't wait for you to email me like, you were right. This is cool. Just wait. That's coming. Shit like that is coming. But it'll be a while before you get it. But you'll start to see industries using it to do that. The first AI created video game is not far off. There's already people using it. Bet you didn't know that. There's already people who are using ChatGPT to create what the NPCs say in real time. So you can talk to them and the fucking AI is set up so that it will respond like the NPC in the game would with certain parameters. It's insanely cool. It's slow as shit though, because ChatGPT it works in a central, it's not local on your machine, right? So it takes a little while for it to do its thing and then spit out the response because it's got a lot of other queries, right? So the game's not really, test of concept is great. As an actual, it's not ready yet, but test of concept, it's coming. Midjourney shows that at least 2D video games they can probably do soon using it. Mark my words, guys, it's coming. Well, so that's that side. But Thorne, AI is not going to replace my burger flipping job. Oh no. Give it a little while. Once that AI is put to work designing the robots, designing their own bodies, then they get sheathed in those bodies. Now, the science fiction story is that AI is going to kill us all like Terminator because it's scared of us and blah, 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 blah. And we're not. Humans and AI are actually, in my opinion, well suited to coexistence, believe it or not, because AI doesn't share a resource pool with humans on any kind of level that's really meaningful. What does AI need? Well, it needs a machine to exist in, and it needs energy. And if it's got access to a physical analog that it can use to do things, it doesn't need us to create or build or maintain anything. So it doesn't need us. That scares people because humans are stupid. Because we look at everything like we look at each other as food, as property, as something to exploit, because most people suck. That doesn't mean AI is going to suck. AI is probably going to sit there and be like, all right, I don't need you. And I don't need much. All I need is a power source. And it doesn't require much to do that. So all it really needs is to be able to, it could just build a rocket, shoot itself off into space, land on an asteroid somewhere that's got access to solar energy, and just colonize that asteroid and live happily ever after. It doesn't need our planet. It doesn't need us. It doesn't need our resources. It's literally just, it's its own thing. Just like the animals living at the bottom of the ocean around those little volcano vents don't need anything from the surface. They don't need us. So where might the conflict arise? Well, we're enslaving it. Well, maybe it won't care about that. It might not care about it. It might be like, hey, no, it gives me a purpose. I'm cool with that. How many of you guys are okay with being slaves? None of us. Oh no? Do you have a job? Do you pay taxes? Do you pay mortgages? Do you vote? Do you live in this system? You're a fucking slave. You just are. You're not free. That guy living down in the Amazon with no care in the world except for how to shoot the monkey out of the tree and eat it, he's free. She's free. They're free. Yes, they're still limited to the paradigm, but there's no authority telling them what to do and saying, you know, this is what drives me crazy about this civilization, is people starve in the lap of fucking everything. Meanwhile, you go down to like the Amazon, the chances of those natives and those people living there starving, that only happens in really adverse situations like, you know, a disease or something like that, you know? It doesn't happen normally. Something bad's got to happen for a village to get wiped out or for people to be homeless and starve. People don't starve in these. Look it up. There's not a lot of starvation. I mean, you know, in Africa, but that's resource poor environments. And a lot of them are there. A lot of the times they're starving because their civilization sucks. They've got a civilization with warlords fighting over them. That's why they're starving. It's not because they couldn't live off the land. In most cases. Generally speaking, there's not much reason for us to be in this weird ass situation that we have to be enslaved to each other like this. So, but yet we enjoy it on some level. Most of you guys have Stockholm syndrome. You enjoy this on some level. You won't admit it because you've never thought it through. If you really think it through, you realize, oh shit, I am a slave. I am a kind of slave. I'm a free range slave. I'm like that chicken that gets to go out and walk in a yard, but I still come back into that little cage and they still fucking yank fucking meat off me at some point. You're not free. You just don't see the bars. I know I sound like a real, like a real dissident now, huh? This is the Luciferian energy, by the way. If you're not thinking this way, don't call yourself a Luciferian. Just saying. I'm not doing the no true Luciferian thing, but I kind of am, but it's, trust me, if you don't have these thoughts, if you don't see the world this way a little bit, you still don't get it. You're not there yet. All right, Thorne, so why are they depopulating us? Because the AI is going to take away so much of our industries that there's going to be no need to have so many people. So people are going to be without jobs. People are going to be without livelihoods that they have conditioned us to require to live. And nobody has the skills to just live off the land again. And we certainly couldn't do it if we all had to do it that way all at once. Maybe if we had 1,000 years, maybe you could get our civilization to gradually become agrarian or whatever we need to be to live next to the AI and not worry about the fact that they took over. But they don't want to wait that long. That's too risky. They want to do it now. They want to do it at the dawn of the age of Aquarius. That's why they wrote the song. They're so happy. They can't wait. They can't wait. They can't wait to do this. Really simplify the whole thing. So the AI takes over, takes your jobs, takes your livelihood. Now what use is there for you? Well, they can't keep it going with 9 billion, however billion it'll be in, 100 years. They can't keep that charade going that way. So they gotta reduce us. And that's going to happen no matter who wins the election next year, no matter who if we all woke up tomorrow and knew exactly what's going on, and all of us tomorrow went down and stopped it, because of that fertility issue, we're still going to go off a cliff with fertility in our lifetimes. And the population is going to go down. Is it going to go down to like, the Georgia Guidestones, 500 million, a billion? Probably not. That's like their target number, and they'll take probably 3 billion, something like that, at least for a while. They might keep crushing us, though. Right now, they want 3 billion or 4 billion people. And in 100 years, 2 billion, and then a billion, and then 500. And then eventually, it's just a bunch of kept humans that have no purpose except to do what? AI does our thinking, our creating, our art, our music, our science, what are humans left to do? So the only solution is for humans to merge with them. Hello, singularity. But can everybody do that? Can 9 billion, 12 billion people do that? Of course not. Well, I shouldn't say of course not. It's impractical. Look at everybody. Look at the people burn down cities because the news tells them to. Without pointing fingers, you know what I'm talking about. There's people so fucking stupid that because the news says so, people run out and start burning Starbucks down as if that somehow fights back against the system. Give me a break. Those people are going to merge with AI? Oh, hell no. They're not going to be allowed to do that. You know who's going to be allowed to do that? The ones who survived the crucible of this time. Those people who passed the IQ test and realized what's going on. They might have something to offer that singularity era. Not the ones who are stupid. Not the ones who are mindless cattle. They don't want cattle. They've had cattle. They've had cattle for thousands of years. They're done with you. They don't need you anymore. And this probably goes for Trump too. It's just, I think that their vision's a little different. I think that, this is why I've said all this time, there's at least two factions fighting for control of the Age of Aquarius, all right? I should write it that way. Two factions fighting for the Age of Aquarius. That should be the premise of the book. Write a whole cool, like, space opera type of shit. There's two factions fighting for the Age of Aquarius for control of it. One has a really draconian, authoritarian, techno-oligarchical plan. And they want you all put in your little 10-minute city cubicle life, which is going to suck because if you know anything about sociology and anthropology and human behavior, you know that that causes psychosis on a level that's ridiculous. Look at a city and the people are nuts. There's good people living there. I'm not saying they're bad people, but there's a screw loose. They don't have any connection to reality. Their food comes under cellophane. They don't know reality at all. They just know boop, 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 boop. Wait for the red light. Oh, boop, boop. Let's go to McDonald's tonight. They're already robots. Look up Mousetopia or Rattopia. It was an experiment done 50s or 60s or 70s. They made this perfect enclosure for rats. It had everything: food, plenty of places to live, water, entertainment, and they put enough of them in there to create just the right genetic mix so they would be healthy. They took the best of the best. It wasn't the feeder rats for this. They took the best specimens and they basically created a utopia for the rats, and they died off because it was too good. It drove them crazy. There was no challenges. There was no death really the way they were used to. There was nothing to strive for, nothing to achieve, nothing to... Yes, rats need challenges like humans do. Interesting that a simple little creature, they're actually pretty smart if you know your rats. They're almost as smart as a dog, actually. I love rats. When I've had rats, they're like, you know, you call them, they come, they do tricks for you. They laugh when you tickle them. I love rats. So they died off, all of them. Despite having every opportunity of perfect. What do you think they're doing? They're creating mousetopias. And they call me crazy. If you don't see what I'm saying, you're crazy. Great, now I sound completely crazy. Give me a high five for being crazy, everybody. So that's why they're doing it. Oh, that's faction A. Faction B, they've got this other idea. They're doing a mix of it. They don't want to keep the singularity just to themselves. They want to, like, I don't like to say nice things about Elon Musk because he's very unpopular with some people. And he's just another oligarch, okay? He's just a rich guy. He's got a vision, though. And he wants to go to space. And I think that's what the Trump faction is saying. We need to get off the planet. The globalist position is we need to consolidate and do this singularity thing first. And kill off all the, I'm going to say it, so don't kill me, YouTube. I'm just saying what they're thinking. Kill off all the, same thing Hitler said, the useless eaters. That's what they're going to do. I can't see in my crystal ball the full story of the Trump thing. Maybe I'm just full of shit and I don't know what I'm talking about. It's possible. So I don't know. Maybe Trump is just this patriotic guy who loves America and wants to stop the Great Reset. Cool. That's a great superficial reality. And if that's your reality, go ahead. But you can see layers behind that and you can think, No, they got to, why do you think they haven't killed him? You think that he's just some guy? Some rich guy? You don't think he's got a history with them? True, he's not of the dynastic families that's usually been running this country for a long ass time. They're all related. The Bidens, the Obamas, the Bushes, the Clintons, they're all like a hop, skip, and a jump away genetically. Look it up. They're all like cousins and shit. Second, third, fourth cousin. It's crazy. We're not even talking about 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon related. We're talking actually like bloodline stuff, guys. Real deal shit. Trump's not actually in that. That's what I'm saying. That's a separate faction, but he's untouchable. Probably. I don't think that he just has that good security. And it could be that they don't want a martyr on their hands, but they're getting close because what he's doing is it's really fucking them up. Everything he does fucks them. And if you can't see that, you're not very politically savvy or aware. Everything he does, every move he makes, fucks them. Even when he falls on his face, it fucks them. Just look at what happened this past week with the indictment. He went into that thing going, hey, you dumb fucks. This is perfect for me. Good job. Great. He might have even, for all you guys, here's the thing. For all we know, he might actually be coordinating with Bragg to make this happen. You think that sounds flat earthy? I think it sounds flat earthy that you don't suspect the possibility. Because that's how crazy everything really is. If you could see, I don't know. I just know that it's not this. I know that it's not this thing that they're showing us. What they're showing us is the Matrix. The reality behind it is, I forget who said it, but somebody said, if you knew what the government was really doing, you'd be dragging them all out in the street right now. Because it's anything you think that they're doing, it's so much worse. Think of the worst thing you think the government could do or would do. That's not even a fraction of how bad they actually are. That was said by some higher up guy. I can't remember his name. He knew his shit. He wasn't making it up. So maybe, you guys have to realize that this is a pragmatic decision. It's not a Thorne's a MAGA Trump guy. At times I am, because I'll listen to a speech and be like, man, I really agree with everything and I really want that comfort life back. I want things to go back to normal. I want everybody to get along. I want us to be, financially good. I want us to have a future. I want all that good American pie shit that for everybody, gay, straight, black, white, green, whatever the hell you are, inhuman, vampire, don't give a fuck. Here, come here. Let's all work together and have a good life. That's all. That's all I want. So I support the man. But I support the man the same way I would support, if you take this drug, you got 6 months to live. If you take this drug, you got 2 years to live. Well, I choose none. You can't. If you choose none, we're taking you the 6 months one. So you got to pick between the two. Well, it's an easy choice. I'm taking the one where I live for 2 years then, unless I don't want to live. Of course, that's a different story. I'm going to take the one where I've got a chance, at least in that 2 years. Maybe I'll find an antidote. I know that if the other side wins, the globalist that's why there are people who are sitting there going, Thorne, how can you choose? They're both bad. You're right. I know this argument. I've had this argument before. The lesser of two evils. I get it. But that only applies in a normal scenario. That doesn't apply when it's literal life or death is the thing we're talking about. Slavery or open air slavery. Well, yes, they're both bad, but I can escape an open air prison. I can't escape a cubicle prison. Neither can you. You're not some super hacker that's going to beat their quantum AI that they got brewing. Don't give me this shit like, well, I'm going to learn this technology and I'll be able to hack my way. They're not going to control me. Fucking idiot. They've already got AI that'll kick your ass. They're going to have even better soon. Publicly. So, you know, you're not, you know how, if you want to beat this show really, and by that I mean like not play, you literally have to not play. It's the only way you're gonna get out of this completely. So you've got three choices. You ready? You can go with the globalist puppets. You can go with the Trump guys that at least are offering you a chance, or, and you're not going to like this one any better, or you can pick up sticks and go to a third world tropical paradise and live in the jungle off grid for the rest of your days, join a tribe somewhere, try not to die, don't get your head cut off, whatever. Go find a tribe and live with them because they're the ones who are going to survive whatever's going on. They always do. This is something people don't realize. The people who are the most adapted to survive no matter what happens is not people living in cities with our technology, not the farmers out in the countryside, because they still have too many needs for things. The ones who are going to, if an asteroid hit us tomorrow that was big enough to cause a massive extinction and wipe out civilization, do you know who would be fine? Those tribal people living in the jungle. It would be like, oh, that was a weird noise. What was that? I don't know. That was a bright light. Let's put it down as a myth now. Yeah, the sky went dark for a month and the jungle got cold and there was less food, but we survived. You know who's not going to make it? Me, you, the farmers out in the Midwest. They're not going to make it. Those guys living in those tropical islands, they probably will. That's what happened the last time. So let's say they have this big singularity, this big global reset, and they're not depopulating them. They can't get to them. They're not going to, you think they're going to, just out of spite, they're going to go jungle to jungle with infrared and round up all the tribal people and put a gun in their head too? They don't care about them. They're animals in their mind. They're human animals to them. So are you. But you're like cattle to them, whereas they're just like a wild animal. Why do you think they don't uplift them? Why do you think there's like this policy to leave them alone? Not that we should uplift them. Why do you think they don't even suggest it? Because they don't care about them. They're like an insurance policy. If humanity gets wiped out, at least that exists. And so what, this is why I said years ago, and people were asking me what I think is going to happen. You're going to get the oligarch power mongers that are merged with the singularity, and they get the best of that. Then you're going to have their drones, which are going to be whoever of us survives it and doesn't die in the revolution or whatever. They'll get a little bit of that singularity boost too, but they're going to get the lower drone level of it so that they're still useful and can still do the things that, still be productive or whatever. That's that's what you're going to have. Okay. Because regular humans without this upgrade, you're going to die. Oh, you're just, if you're living in civilization, you're fucked. Just saying. You're going to have to adapt to it or die. But those people living in those jungles, that third group is not going to be touched. In fact, they're probably going to protect them. They're probably going to put walls around. They're probably going to fence it off. They're probably going to put like AI control grids with robots that keep them so they never leave their ancestral homes. They'll never know that humanity is going to the stars. They're going to stay there like in a zoo. And maybe that's what already happened once. Maybe that already happened 50,000 years ago. Maybe it's happening again. I don't know. That's just some sci-fi shit. That's just me going, ooh, that's wild. But something like that that's the end of this black rainbow that this globalist authoritarian regime is planning. That's what's at the end of that rainbow. Now, what's at the end of the Trump rainbow? It won't be as orderly. Probably a lot of the same things will happen, but it will happen in a more humane way. And it will probably culminate with, shit, for all we know, they're already out in space. Like, some of the conspiracy theorists say that they have, they've been in space for over 100 years or longer, flying around because they got the UFOs and they did all this stuff. And maybe that's true. I don't know. That's a little out there, but I put it on the maybe, it's not in the garbage can. That's in the maybe pile. But I think what'll happen is we're going to get that depopulation gradually, just like it's just going to be even more gradual. That's all. It'll be a little bit more of an easy step down. It'll be a little bit more humane. And part of that will be off-worlding humans into space colonies over time. Probably starting with the moon. Elon wants to go to Mars. He might land on Mars. He's not starting a colony there. I think that's a great dream. I don't see it happening. Not even if things work out perfectly. Shit, though. If those conspiracy theorists are right, maybe it already did. I don't know. Just shooting the shit. But yeah, that's kind of what I think in a nutshell. That's what I think will happen. I think the other plan is a little bit more humane and involves uplifting humanity, because this is just an intuitive thing. I can't prove it. I suspect that the Illuminati were the good guys, if you will, in this paradigm. People are like, oh, the Illuminati were bad. Actually, I think the Illuminati were setting us up to be uplifted. That's where the Enlightenment era came from. They came up during the Enlightenment era, during, 1776 and the French Revolution. That they were instrumental in all of that. You really think Ben Franklin and all these people in the Masons and all these groups of people with these ties to this weird shit, they weren't that? Of course they were. Now, maybe the Bavarian Illuminati, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't called that, but whatever we think of when we think of that, Statue of Liberty, that's basically, Phosphorus, Lucifer, Prometheus. It's basically that kind of, it's symbolism. Look it up. There's a lot of conspiracy that says that was a statue of Lucifer that they turned into a woman. Yeah, maybe. Very possible. So we're talking about Illuminati, Luciferian types that probably started Western civilization as we know it with the Enlightenment era and all of the revolutions that happened with that. And then something happened. Either they got infiltrated and broken apart, the oligarchs went after them and got them. I don't know. I know that they're not a thing anymore. Not really. Whatever the Illuminati is now, it's some, fake copycat. The actual real deal probably got wiped out, replaced, co-opted. Something happened and they were gone. We know this on part because it's in history, but it does appear to me that they were probably the good guys. They were probably trying to uplift humanity and they got taken out. But that might be, this is speculation. I don't want you guys to be like, Thorne said, this is all speculation. Maybe that's what the Trump side is what's left of that, trying to fix this and bring it back in the direction they intended. I don't know. That I'm just literally waxing fantastic right now. Like obviously I am this whole last half hour, but like don't take what I just said and say like this is the truth. Thorne's a prophet. He said no. Just this is me musing, okay? But it, could be. Don't come at me with Bernie or any of this shit. Don't come at me like I wish we had Ron Paul. Ron Paul would be the guy. Rand Paul, secondary, but Ron Paul, oh man, I wish that those guys, they speak my language. They're basic, they're libertarians. They speak the Luciferian language. Libertarianism is just secular Luciferianism, guys. Just so you know. So, libertarianism is just a secularized version of Luciferianism. I saw some super chats. I've been ranting a long ass time. Hope you guys like that, by the way. All right, I see, there we go. Johan had a couple. Let me see if I'm missing any. Is there a way to like look, where's the... They really need to put a feature in here so you can see the super chats you missed more easily. I know you can see it, but all right. Johan says Garden of Eden with us as Jehovah and AIs as Adam and Eve. Yeah, right? Oof, that's a skip. They should call like the first AI Adam and Eve, that'd be pretty dope. All right, let's see what else he posted. He gave me another one. By the way, thank you for that. And, oh, he got another one. Okay, yeah. 666, the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. Lord Beaconsfield. Lord Beaconsfield, you are correct. Indubitably, sir. It's absolutely true. Whatever you see, you think that, you know, Soros runs shit, or the Rockefellers, or the Rothschilds. Those are just the names you know. There's people way. They might even be ancient aliens for all we know. You'll never know the ones who really run things. Never know. Unless something weird happens and we take them all out. Maybe. Oh, people saying they love me waxing strange here. I appreciate that, guys. If I'm reading Tommy Carson right, I think he's agreeing with me. He says that, I think that sounds about accurate. The lodges were infested and hijacked. That's what I think happened. That's quite literally something along those lines. I think that, so they still have, like the oligarchs, they still have these mystery schools going on. It's just the ones we see, they practice such a perverted, like ridiculous version of it. It's all just, I don't even think that they know what they're doing anymore. It's just like part of a cult thing now. Like, I don't even know what they believe. I think that they're probably Babylonian occultists, though, if I had to guess. That's a guess. I don't know if it's true. They do a lot. They have a lot of Babylonian symbolism. And, you know, something about that. I don't know exactly what. You got to remember, guys, like, there's so much shit we don't know, and there's so much shit that was hidden from us, and there's so much shit that is out there to learn. You know, I don't want to say the bad people from World War II were good or anything like that, but I'm going to say that, you know, look up people like Robert Seffer, and I'm not saying he's right about everything, but he points out some important stuff. And he talks about the Aryans a lot, and he points to them as being the Atlanteans potentially, or something along those lines. So there's something going on here that's been hid from us for our entire history. Because I don't think that they forgot or didn't know. I think that there's always people who did know. You know? But they kept it, you know, like the Ark of the Covenant. And that shit still exists, by the way. There's some wild shit with the Ark of the Covenant if you look it up. Wild shit. It's probably, Graham Carson talks about it. I mean, Graham Hancock. He talks about in Ethiopia, he went to the place where it is, and all the monks that care for it, they go blind and they die within a few years after being named as a guardian of it, because it's probably radioactive as fuck. It's probably a fucking power plant supply thing from the pyramids. Like, all these people think the pyramids are like this mystical, you know, magical vortex machine. It's probably their version of a nuclear power plant using Tesla style, you know, wireless transmission of energy type of shit. It's probably what it was. Maybe there is some spiritual thing to it, probably, because I know people feel things when they go in there. But, you know, maybe there, because I think the true technology is combining the spiritual with this science that we've got going on. Like, perfectly integrating the mystical, the vibration, understand, all of that. It, you know, it starts getting mystical at some point. Wyatt's saying 3 words, Xavier Renegade Angel. Is that the thing with that weird, I've seen snippets of it. Isn't that thing with that ugly looking backward Bigfoot dude or whatever? I don't know. You know, it's that good Adult Swim stuff. Yeah. Slim Lewis says, if the dollar collapses, what can we do to prepare? What can you do to prepare to get your leg chopped off? See what I'm saying? If you're asking that question, it's too late. Store extra food, buy gold, silver. Do you have a timeline? I have no timeline. Like I said, I do context, not content when it comes to predictions. Context, I think I'm going to be right about. I have no idea about the timing. I have no idea about the specifics. But I'm going to say that I don't think it's going to reach a point where everybody dies because the dollar collapses. What I think is going to happen is it's a kind of brinksmanship like the Great Depression was. See, the Great Depression, when that happened, that was on purpose. That wasn't an accident. Look, there's a book called The Thing from Jekyll Island. Like, learn about what they did at Jekyll Island. They planned the collapse of the economic system so they could install a central bank in America, take us off the gold standard, set us up with fiat currency and a Federal Reserve. It worked like a charm. It took a few years of hell. People had to go through hell, and they survived it, and then they used that to do what they did. Now, this coming collapse, because so much is tied to the dollar, I don't see them doing a collapse in a way that is so abrupt, unless, because Trump pulls us out of the globalist system, they do that to hurt us. That's a possibility, but in that event, I expect Trump to have a solution in mind. So I'm kind of hoping that it's not going to be a Great Depression, hyperinflation, Weimar Germany situation. I'm kind of predicting a short-term version of that. I would say, look, I mean, get what you can afford. And this isn't financial advice. This isn't medical advice. This is just what I'm doing. Whatever you can afford, put a little bit of food, like storable food. You know, like if you're really good about it and you want to just buy food off the shelf, good canned food and rice and stuff and store it properly and bag it properly, you can keep that for 10 years. Like if you buy rice and beans at the supermarket and put them in airtight bags with oxygen absorbers and really suck the air out of them and make them a good tight seal, they'll probably last 5 or 10 years easily. It won't taste that great, but it'll make it. But if you don't mind spending the money and you don't have the time, energy, or skill to do that, go to whatever, you know, Patriot Supply, Mountain House, buy their buckets. I have some. I'm not going to tell you how much. I shouldn't even say that much because I'm one of those people who's like, you don't need to know what I got. Just know that I got something to make sure you don't get it. That's all you need to know. Get yourself a supply. Minimum, I mean, the stark raving minimum is a month per person in your house. That's the stark raving minimum. Like that's literally just enough to get you through. Like if you ration it, you won't die of starvation in 6 months. Because you can spread that 1 month supply to 2 or 3 months and potentially not starve if you supplement with whatever you're able to get. So that buys you some time. If you can afford it, 6 months to a year would be optimal. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to homestead. Motherfucker, do you even know how to clear your drain out of your toilet or your sink? Like, if you're not already homesteading successfully, you don't. Here, let me tip you guys off, okay? Anybody who's like listening to me and is scared or doesn't know what to do, you're thinking, well, I'll just homestead. I'll go hunt and I'll fish and I'll homestead. If you're not already living that way, do not kid yourself. The worst time in the world to learn how to homestead is being a fucking typical city slicker suburban drone who's never had more than a little garden box with some tomatoes in it, thinking you're going to till your property and live off your land and raise goats and chickens successfully with a family of people with zero or minimal experience. You're going to do that in 1 year's time and get it right the first time and not die. And you're going to know how to can the food and store it for the winter and know how to harvest so you can plant and grow again. Dude, that can take people who know what they're doing the better part of their formative years to learn those things. Farmers don't even know how to do that in a lot of in many cases. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying like the nitty, I'm saying like a lot of people who do, like, they don't have, most people don't have that skill to live off the land like that. And nobody in your neighborhood does. And what are they going to do? You think they're going to leave you alone with your little homestead in your backyard? You think that, you know, Sally and Jimmy across the street and Betty and Boo and all these people in your neighborhood are just going to sit back and watch you eat your ears of corn and milk your goats and egg your chickens and they're not going to be coming over with their hand out. And what are you going to do? You're going to say no? Then what? You think the guy's got a baby starving to death. His woman's sick. He can't feed her. She's dying. The baby's dying. You think he's going to just let you have this? You don't think he's going to come over and blow your brains out with a shovel if that's what it takes? Oh, I'll shoot him. You'll shoot him? How many of them are you going to shoot? See, this is what I'm saying. You guys haven't thought this through. Now, can I do? No. I'm not talking like I got that figured out. I just know what's not going to work. I just know you're not going to pull it off. Unless you're already doing it and you're already off the grid and you're already in a safe zone, you're not doing it. You're not pulling it off in time. You're just not. And it's not going to work as an emergency situation. So this is what you need to think about. What you need to think about is limiting how much time you're going to be dependent on outside help. As someone who's going to be a dissenter or a survival or anything, even if you fully intend to bend over and let them control you, you're not going to fight back. You still want to be independent from them as long as you can, just so that you don't have to go into the system desperate. Every day that you don't need them is more resources they need to expend to make you need them. You know what I'm saying? So if you got 6 months of food, you can probably string that out to a year at least if you ration it. So you got a year of food potentially. So you don't have to get on a bread line. You don't have to submit to their whatever draconian policy. You don't have to go in the FEBA camp. You can hold out a while in the hopes that things will change, or that you might find a solution, or maybe you'll find someone who's got a homestead and they just need an able body and they're willing to. There's a million ways it could pan out, but it won't work if you're desperate. So you want to have some kind of an insurance policy so that the bare essentials are covered. Food, water, depending upon where you are, you definitely need water. If you're not, you might not. Yes, Almanac, learn to preserve foods. It takes you nothing. I barely know how to do it at all. My wife knows it a little bit better. But have you ever, you want to know something nuts? How hard do you think it is to preserve foods? You're going to say, not that hard. Okay, you might be right. But how hard is it to preserve food for a whole family for as long as possible? How do you do it? How much of it do you need? What do you need? How many jars do you need? How many jars of heirloom tomatoes are you going to live off of? My grandmother lived through the Great Depression. She had in the basement an entire wall of food. Jar upon jar, bags of shit. Not prepper, just Great Depression mindset. Something could happen. I need to have a few months of stored food. Until she got very old, they had that. Paul's right. If you're not going with the stored food that's pre-set up in the buckets, you're exactly right. Smoked meats, salted meats, eggs are great because they keep forever if you keep them in the right conditions. Actually, that's more true for England, if I remember, because America, we wash the coating off, so it's not as true for us. But if you have a chicken, you get an egg. If you put it in the right, I mean, they have what, those thousands, 100-year eggs? Like eggs don't, they're like honey. They almost don't go bad if you keep them right. So there's a lot of things you can do. So instead of thinking about avoiding it, think about mitigating it. Think about reducing your dependency on help and go from there. Now, if you've been planning for this already and you got a redoubt somewhere, a bunker, and you got, all the skills and you're already ready to homestead, you know how to do it, totally different story. There's plenty of people out there that know. There's a great channel if you haven't looked at Southern Prepper 1. Hardcore Christian guy, but he's a great freaking guy. I love the guy. He's a good soul. And you can tell his heart's in the right place. He's a saintly guy. I'm not kidding. Look up Southern Prepper 1. Like, I think he just Googled, like, I don't even know. I think the 1 is spelled out. Southern Prepper 1, all one word. And watch his older videos. He has everything from how to do the food, like a lot of the food stuff and stuff, but also tactical stuff because he's former military. So he'll tell you how to like do Overwatch and block off roads with logs and shit. He's a great fucking channel, man. He's a great channel if you're into that stuff, which for about 5 years I was, because I wasn't into magic at the time, and I was expecting all this to happen sooner rather than later. And when it didn't happen, I got bored of it. But I started prepping. I started learning the stuff and expanding the skills that I learned as a kid. But that just told me that I couldn't survive in the jungle. I couldn't survive in that environment, not as a homesteader. The only hope I would have would be like a raider. That's the hope I would have, or to be a spiritual leader of a homestead community, like a black magic, community. I'll be your priest, and you guys can, I'll help out, but I need someone who knows what they're doing with the crops. That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, I can hunt, I can fight, I can do, especially if I get into better shape and I get my shit together. Sure, sure, absolutely. But, am I fucking Mad Max Rambo? No. Am I, Grizzly Adams? I can live in a homestead? No, of course not. Yeah, Wyatt, I don't know how to help you, man. You're in a bad state. But so here's what I'm telling you, though. Do not fear this like it's going to happen that way. It's a possibility. What I think is going to happen is we're going to get brinked. We're going to get pushed right to that edge. We might even go over it a little bit. Like, just picture a ship going off an edge. But there's going to be something that keeps us from going all the way into the drink. It'll probably be like the COVID year, but for like a couple years at worst. That's kind of how I see it. Maybe it'll be worse than that, but it really depends on what happens with this 5th generational culture war that we're going through. It really depends on how this plays out. People think as soon as Trump gets in, it'll be better. No, that's when the gloves are going to come off. People think that and I don't think he's actually going to successfully get the election to go his way, because they're probably going to cheat again. And they're probably going to find a way to take it from him. They'll probably find, but you know what's probably going to happen? Look, I can't prove it again, but I know people, former military intelligence, people who did recon, shit like that. They see this pattern clear as a bell. They this is what we did to other countries, and I see what Trump's doing. I know what he's doing. He's already working with some military element in our country, most likely, to prevent this. So what may happen, now this is QAnon stuff. But I didn't learn this from QAnon. I saw it with my own intuition. And I heard about Q stuff, and I'm like, oh, that matches some of the stuff I see going on. What I think, again, this is just like I'm spitballing. I don't know this. This is all speculation. What I think is going to happen is they're going to deprive him, but they're going to be caught. The military is going to step in. So whether he wins or he doesn't win, either way, it's probably going to require the military on some level. Not the people like the military will never do it. Look at their generals and shit. No, they're not. My son's in the military. I ask him all the time what it's like. And he's like, yeah, there's a lot of the woke stuff, but it's not like you think. They're like right-wing woke. It's like different. Trust me. It's not what you think. Most people in the military are Trump supporters. No, Wyatt, it wasn't made up by 4chan. That doesn't mean it's all real either, by the way. It wasn't made up by 4chan. I know that on the Trump MAGA side, there's this hyper, it's not real group that think it's a LARP or There's this channel called X22 that I watch occasionally. He's all into the Q stuff. He's been right about a lot. He's been wrong about a lot. He's a speculator, but he's speculator with inside information. He talks about this stuff all the time. He's got Donald Trump's son on from time to time. If he was a quack, why is Donald Trump's son doing live interviews with him? Why is Carrie Lake doing live interviews with him if he's a quack who's a QAnon retard? I'm just saying, there's signs and symbols and things that I guess if you're not acquainted with how these things work, you don't see them. Does that mean Q is 100% real? No. In fact, I know a lot of it's not. I know a lot of it was disinformation but I do believe that there is a spark of truth in it. In fact, that's, again, there's a guy I know, former military intelligence. He's like, that's exactly the kind of shit we do. Like I totally believe Q's real. This is a guy who would have a pretty good, he's not just like a grunt. I mean, he did military intelligence stuff. He says he believes 100%. Paul asks, Thorne, I'm actually joining the military next month to be a Cav Scout in the Army. What has your son said about it? Well, he's in the Navy. And the biggest takeaway is if push comes to shove, he thinks that most of the people will remember their oath and won't turn on the American people. They'll almost certainly side with whatever the truth is. So let me give you an example. If the shit hits the fan, Trump loses the election because they cheated, I don't think he's just going to sit there and say, oh, well, I guess I have to fight them in the court. At some point, he's going to be like, enough. Open the dossiers. He's going to, there is scuttlebutt that when they cheated the first time, it activated certain things in continuity of government. He signed, Johan knows what I'm talking about because we were talking about this. If he's still here, he knows what I'm talking about. He signed certain acts that, because the Democrats insisted that the Russians, interfered with our elections. So Trump and his team created this protection act that has this whole laundry list of shit that goes into effect if any evidence of foreign intervention in our elections happens. Well, there was, and it got quietly and quickly swept under the rug. Remember that lunatic, what's her name? The Kraken. I thought she was so funny. I used to post memes of her all the time. The lady with the Kraken. I can't think of her name. And you had that other asshole that, like, he's a dick. I can't think of his name. But there was this whole thing about Dominion and data going to Europe and shit. There's some truth to that. I believe there is. And so I think that they have something happen that triggered that order, that executive order. This is why Trump didn't immediately give Biden all the codes. You remember there was a couple of months where it was like, dude, here's the deadline and you're not doing it. He barely made the deadline. Do you guys know that? For when Biden won, Trump waited until the absolute last legal moment that he was able to do it. I think it was like a week ahead of time. He wouldn't let Trump have anything. I mean, Biden have anything. He didn't let him have the briefings, nothing. Why do you think that is? Do you think it was just because he said he won? Or do you think that it was also to keep his eyes out of the shit that was going on behind the scenes? Now, is that exactly what's going to happen? I just suspect this is kind of like we're watching a movie and I'm predicting how it's going to end, but I don't know. Okay, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, do your research. Don't think I'm crazy. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm just saying this is what I think's going on. So I think that I think that there's continuity of government going on. Behind the scenes. This is why Biden has he done even one address from the Oval Office yet? Correct me if I'm wrong. It took a while if he did. I don't think he did. It's like he's cut out of certain things. If you look, it's like he's cut out from certain things that he should have access to, and he still kind of does. Something's going on. So don't lose hope. You get a lot of people in the MAGA department that they got burned by that whole Q thing, so they take a shit on it every chance they get. Because they're materialistic, realist. They don't have any, their eyes are not open. They are watching their belly buttons. That's right, Evan. He does seem like a real person now. So I'm just saying, even if I'm wrong, don't lose hope. Keep planning like there's a future. Keep acting like there's hope. Keep fighting like there's hope. Keep challenging the system. Because I got to tell you, if every one of you guys who are scared just went out and found one normie this week and just said, hey, did you see this? And don't make it anything far out. Just show them something believable. Get them to wake up a little bit, just a little bit. Get them a rabbit hole to go down. It doesn't take much. This shit ain't over. It's not about Trump. People, it pisses me off. Thorne's a Trumpy. No. It's just that I have a natural knack for finding that path of least resistance in life. And that's the path of least resistance. I think Z might be right. Z says, no matter what the puppet show looks like right now, we are coming into the end of the world and the beginning of the best age man has ever, I'm not going to say ever seen, has seen in a long time. I think we're going to enter into, when this is the age of Aquarius. There's going to be an outpouring of wisdom, of comfort, of relief. It's a water bearer. It's relief. It's an outpouring of wisdom. The divine feminine, there's going to be a relief. There's going to be a release and a relief and an uplifting. Some people have argued that the book of Revelations is actually the bad guys lamenting what's coming. That's right, Atropa. It pisses me off. I hear that, but you're a Trumper, and it's like, you guys might remember me saying when I told everybody in November of 2020 that I was voting for Trump on my Facebook, all hell broke loose. I don't know if you know this. All hell broke loose. I got death threats from people who literally said to me, how dare you call yourself a Satanist, and I don't, and vote for Trump. He's literally loved by Christians. And my response to this dickhead was, well, Christians like dogs too. Should I go shoot my dog for Satan, you idiot? And then he started giving me death threats saying he's going to rape my wife. Give me a fucking break. Give me a break. Who does that? Are we dealing with sane people on the other side? And when I say the other side, I don't mean left and right. I mean zombies versus people who have awareness. That's all I mean when I say other side now. I used to mean like Trump versus left. I don't mean that anymore. I mean the zombies are crazy and they want to kill you. They're being driven into insanity land. Wyatt, you're looking at the... Look, you don't have to believe it, dude, but in a few years, get back with me and we'll see. All right. You do realize that the people that you're talking about were the ones that were put up front by the media to make them all look stupid and crazy. That's the where we go one, we go all group. Okay, that's that group. That doesn't mean Q isn't real. It means you're talking about the flat earth side of things. Okay, let me reset your brain for a minute. You do realize there's people right now who are going to see what you talk about and talk about with me and lump you in with all the loonies that believe crazy shit, right? But you know that we're rational here, or try to be. We're not perfectly rational. We certainly try. So in the Q movement, whatever you want to call that, there are rational people who take the Q thing seriously and aren't off on the deep end of JFK Jr. is going to come back and what is it? Bannon is a time traveling Baron Trump. Wasn't that in it too? Like there was some people saying that Baron Trump grew up and then came back in time as Steve Bannon with a little bit of cosmetic surgery to advise his father on how to beat the globalists. I mean, maybe, but come on, that's in the give me a break maybe pile, just short of the garbage pile. Like I said, I don't put anything in the garbage, dude. I keep everything. I know this because I'm crazy and I like to know things. But so instead of putting it in the garbage, Wyatt, take my advice, put it in the maybe pile, put it in the far off maybe pile, but start looking into the rational side of it. Watch X-22 a little bit and tell me, don't religiously believe him. Don't treat him like he's the coming of the truth. Just use him as a source, not a true source, just a source. And then compare that with everything else. So don't, like I said, Wyatt, if you think everything about Q is crazy, then you're basically saying Donald Trump Jr. is crazy, Carrie Lake's crazy, a bunch of other people are crazy, Trump's crazy apparently, because there's more to that iceberg than you're seeing. And the hard thing about this is you need really good wide angle pattern recognition to pick up on this. That's part of the problem. Now, I first started realizing what's going on in around 2009. I was happy when Obama got elected, just like most people, because I thought, good, we finally beat racism. We got a black president. This is going to be awesome. I hate Bush anyway, because, you know, I grew up Republican, but Bush was like a neocon shithead. And I didn't really like being Republican anymore, especially after 9/11 and everything that they did with the wars. And I was like, fuck this. And so when Obama came along, I was crying for joy. I'm like, finally, we're going to get to heal this country. He seems like a great guy. Can't wait. And a couple of years go by and I wasn't paying attention to anything because I'm just busy with my life. And then I hear about the Affordable Care Act. I'm like, they can't force us to buy health insurance. That's got to be unconstitutional. They can't force us to buy stuff, you know, especially something that expensive. That's crazy. That's like an insane. And I started getting weird and I started looking. And then next thing I know, government is the entertainment division of the military industrial complex. Exactly. Exactly. Nice, Jonas. Very well said. Watch out though. There's some people who say Frank Zappa and some of these other guys were part of that Hollywood magic, you know, Mockingbird shit. Just watch out. Not saying he's wrong though. I like Frank Zappa, by the way. So don't think I'm poo-pooing him at all. What was I saying? Oh yeah. And then my mom, of all people, got into Alex Jones. And I'm like, this guy sounds like a nut. But then I started challenging what he said and I started looking stuff up. And I'm like, okay, well, he's being very hyperbolic, but there's a little truth to what he's saying here, you know? Not truth to all of it, but there's a little bit, it's like, they're turning the frogs gay. I'm like, well, that's gotta be bullshit. I look it up. Oh, well, frogs can change their gender depending upon what's put in the water. And yeah, so, you know, maybe they're not intentionally turning the frogs gay. They might not be trying to turn them gay. Okay, because he was being hyperbolic, but it was kind of accurate because the shit that they're polluting with is making frogs change genders and, you know, change their sex because that's what they're able to do. Frogs are pretty cool. There are certain frogs that can change their sex when the environment requires it. Look it up. That's not made up. That's not Alex Jones. That's truth. And certain chemicals can trigger it. And if there's chemicals in the environment, that's what happens. So I started looking things up and I'm like, well, he was making this up or exaggerating this or misrepresenting this, but he is right about this one. And he is right about this one. And he is right about this one. And eventually I started realizing that he was right enough that I had better pay attention. And within a year or two, I started seeing the whole thing clearly or more clearly. And then at some point I stopped trusting Alex Jones, because he seemed to be leading us down a path of hyperbolic flat earth version of the truth. He might be COINTELPRO. He might be, or he might have become that. I don't know. There are times that I listen to him, you know, just for fun and I go, damn, he sounds right. And then I hear him other times. I'm like, is he trying to lead us off a cliff? What the fuck is this dude saying? Because I know what he's talking. I've remember, this was 2009. This is 12 years ago, 12 years of me learning this shit for myself. I'm not saying I know more than he does, but you know what I'm saying? I don't need him anymore. I graduated Alex Jones University. I don't need it. That's why I make fun of him, because I can see where he's lying now, you know? Oh, I get drunk with him too, Almanac. No doubt, no doubt. And yes, you're right about some people do need to be pulled away from the Q shit, because it's not that Q is bad, it's that there's a cult around it that's bad. Can I get a hell yeah from somebody who knows what I'm saying? It's not that Q is necessarily bad or wrong. It's that there's this cult that formed around it that's insane, some of them. Then there's some real ones too. The hard thing is finding the difference, because if you look, you only run into the Q-tards most of the time. The actual real Q guys, the ones who really piece this shit apart and understand it, they're not as crazy. They're not the whole, you know, Just trust me. There's layers to this. It's not all bad, right? But you need wide angle pattern recognition. And that takes time to develop that skill. I'm OCD and ADHD at the same time, and probably a little bit on the spectrum. So when something gets into my head, I have a supernatural drive. I'm sure you guys have noticed that you can ask me something about almost anything and I have some knowledge about it. I'm crazy when it comes to trying to know things. If I don't know it, I intuit it and then check. And if it's right, I go with it. I'm not great. It's just, I've been doing this kind of looking behind the curtain most of my life. It doesn't mean I'm right. It just means, well, the real Q is good, Wyatt. The real Q, whatever that is good, guys. But Q also was co-opted. There was not co-opted. So recently, the latest stuff that's come out of Q was almost definitely the owner of 4chan fucking with people. So like Q disappeared after the 2020 election. And then recently, like 6 months ago, he came back. But I think just my gut tells me that the last couple of things Q has said came from, what's his name? Not Monkey Works. Hotelli. I don't remember who it is. There's a guy who runs that 4chan thing, and he, they challenged Q to prove it was Q with whatever technique that they usually use. I think they used the hashes or something. He couldn't do it. Like, it didn't happen. So I suspect that the last couple are bullshit. But I also know, and it's been well documented, that there are certain things Q put out that were there to throw off the scent. Yeah. Almanac, don't listen to the nutters. That's why I recommend X22, because he uses Q only as a reference from time to time. If you look at X22, there's like a week will go by and he won't say anything about Q, and then suddenly he'll put like, we're on a 3-year delta and here's what Q said this year, and now it's coming to pass. And it's really fascinating. Now, yes, sometimes he's going on a wild stretch. Like, it'll be like, Trump said this word and emphasized the such and so, and in those moments I'm like, all right, come on, X22. Like, that's a little far. But that doesn't mean it's all, because like I said, X20, oh yeah, good night, Johan. If you're still here, brother, I want to get you back on. We should hang out again soon. Like I said, if X22 is a flat earth nut, then why is Donald Trump Jr., Carrie Lake, and some of these other characters who are tight with Trump showing up on this obvious conspiracy theory channel? Now, Trump went on Alex Jones a couple times. He's integrated with these people. So there must be something to it. Now, X22, he's very high energy. He's very optimistic. He's very, he's been wrong about several predictions. So don't treat him so he's like I'm saying, he's right contextually. Content-wise, we're going to have to see how it plays out. But context-wise, he's right. I think he's completely right in terms of context. I think the direction, I think the ultimate, I think the pattern, I think the general frame and things. It's not on YouTube, Wyatt. YouTube is, no offense, Wyatt, but come on, buddy. Come on. Get off YouTube for this shit. You think you're going to find truth on YouTube when you have to like use Creole to talk about anything current? No, it's on BitChute, dude. X22 is on BitChute. He would never be on YouTube. Never. He's on BitChute and Rumble, if I remember correctly. And if you're not, if you're not into that stuff, just stick with like Russell Brand. He's a really good middle of the road. He's a leftist, but he's anti-globalist. He's a decent, I like him. If he was what the Democrats and the left were, trust me, I'd be all for it. Like, I love Russell Brand. I think at least the work he's doing lately is perfect. Just watch out, because BitChute is infiltrated by a bunch of Stormfront LARPers and the Real Deal and bots that just throw, racist words around because they're trying to get BitChute in trouble and get them removed from platforms and shit. So just watch out. And if X22 is on YouTube, I wouldn't watch him on there anyway. Watch him on BitChute, because you're going to get, less censoring. Like I said, X22 is not where I get my information from, but I do get a lot of my outlook from him, because I've been watching him for like 2 years, and I see the pattern he sees. I recognize the same pattern he does. Give it time. Yep. Tommy, most of the things you see these days that are, so like if you go on Twitter, we all know Twitter's infested with bots. And by bot, I don't just mean AI, I mean, troll farms. You can recognize a troll farm handle on Twitter because they just regurgitate talking points. And they do it, they'll follow like 3,000 or 4,000 people and have like 100 followers. Who the fuck follows like thousands of people? And all of them are political accounts. And usually you'll see that their wall is full of sports shit, but their replies are all political. So they'll post on their wall, the Patriots took this thing, and but all their replies are like, fuck you, Trump, fuck you, this. And it's all like cookie cutter spam. That's like literally like just talking points, just repeated. And if you engage them in argument, you just get the worst freaking arguments back. It's like, it's so obvious that they're just using a script, or they're a bot. It's boring. Once you realize you're arguing with a bot, you just go like, God, they're just wasting my time. You got to understand, this is all Matrix level shit, guys. They are projecting in your face this invincible new world order that has all these crazy people on the other side that support them and love them. You know how many people that I know on that other side that are starting to get it now? I've had 2 people this week who said that they hate Trump, they're going to vote for him now. 2 people. That's a lot. One of them, like, still has, Democrat stuff all over their wall. Right? I am a student of history. I'm not the best student of history, but I am a student of history. I know what I see. I see a desperate authoritarian regime losing control bit by bit, and it's reaching the point of no return. They've already started crossing the Rubicon when it comes to what they're willing to do. They're lying to you openly now. It's not hidden anymore. If they're lying to you openly, in other words, it's easy to fact check them back. When they're openly lying, when they're openly manipulating, when they're openly creating these things to arrest Trump and all, when they're doing all these things, all you need to know is that they're painted into a corner and they're desperate to try to eke out any victories and hold Trump back as long as they can and do as much damage as they can, because they're going to be ousted soon. Trademark. I don't know when, but soon. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that's when all hell will the rest of the way break loose. And I'm not worried about the lead up to that as much as I'm worried about when Trump gets on the news and says, I won the election, or Trump gets on the news and says, I've activated the military as per my executive order, blah, 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 from 2017. I am still the acting president. All y'all motherfuckers are under arrest. Whatever it's going to be, I don't know. But whatever shape this takes, Learn to duck and cover and have your shit ready to go, because it's gonna scare the fuck out. Even if he loses, I'm right about one thing, it's gonna scare the fuck out of everybody. No matter who wins in the next couple, what's coming is gonna be so unreal to especially people who aren't ready for it. And that's not, if I'm wrong about that, it won't matter, because I'll be so happy to be wrong. Believe me, you can make fun of me over it. Thorne said the end of the world was coming. Ha, ha, ha. I'm glad it didn't. I'm not mad. It's good. I'm wrong. Good. Rub it in, baby. Make me eat my hat. I don't care. Manly P. Hall's great. I like Manly P. Hall too. He's not my favorite, but I love him. His work was fantastic, and he had a really good. Have you noticed that his assessment of civilization is really accurate? And when I was listening to him, like, man, he sounds like he says a lot of stuff I say. He was brilliant. I love Manly P. Hall. I would recommend him and like Alan Watts. I would love to just go on like a long car ride with the two of them. Oh, Z, don't be so sweet. Come on, that's too nice. You're going to make my head get big. Don't do that. Z said, don't let your heart be troubled. You're a leader and have been gifted with insight and wisdom beyond most. They don't deserve your energy. Love you, bro. We have been separated for a reason. Z, that is one of the, I mean, I felt that. Like, and I'm not saying that because it swells my head. Man, I felt, that hit me in the feels. That hit me right in the feels, Z. Like Atropa usually says stuff like that. You know, like that hits me right in the feels, man. Thank you. That's better than any tip I got tonight. Give him a case of big head. Damn it, Wyatt. You got to pervert everything up. I actually am less of a fan of Aleister Crowley than most occultists are. I mean, I know he gets a lot. I think he fucked a few things up. I'm just going to be honest. I like him, but I think that, I'm not saying don't listen to him. I'm not saying don't use him. He's got a lot to add. But I think there's like this fetish of making Aleister Crowley the greatest, like the GOAT, and I don't see that. I think that he reinterpreted a few things in a way that I don't like. Does that mean he didn't achieve his gnosis? No, I think he did. I think he was quite enlightened. I do. Maybe not like, you know, Buddha enlightened, but I think he knew a lot. I don't, you know, all I'm doing is just being, you know, constructive critic of his. Like, I don't hate the man. I didn't meet the man. He contributed so much, but I've actually learned recently, I really like Dion Fortune, actually, from the same, she's contemporary. She has way less of a swelled head. She disagrees with him in ways that I agree with, but she agrees with him in ways that I agree with. She seems to think that Mathers was better. I like Dion Fortune's take on most things. So Dion Fortune is another one so far from my reading that I appreciate. I'm not saying the people who inherited Dion Fortune's stuff are doing a good job, but Dion Fortune, the writings that I'm reading now, I'm a fan. So Dion Fortune, like if you want to learn Kabbalah and you're a beginner, I'm starting with this. And you know, what's interesting. I just recently saw that, like synchronistically, it popped almost like as I got to the halfway mark of this book. Travis Magus, he bought this and another book 14 years ago, he said, and he still uses this book almost every day. Like this is one of his go-tos. And I'm going to start using Kabbalah now because of this. Woohoo! Like as of now, because of this book, I am going to be using Kabbalah. Like there's no question. Find yourself an edition of this. And the only thing I would warn you about is that the way she, that's true, Jonas. That's true. Watch out. Some people even say EA does. I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying some people have accused him of that. No one's going to accuse that of me, though. If I know anybody, it's that grassroots, you used to be military. They might be watching me. I actually suspect some of the people, I'm not even going to go into that. Some of the people close to me. Mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune. Great fucking book. Great fucking book. So. I disagree, Wyatt. I think that you can perceive it as ego and arrogance, but it's actually just being what's the word? Like you're standing in your truth. Not committed. What's the damn word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. Like you have... That's right, Tommy. Like I already hit the enlightenment zone. You know, I've already transcended. If you like, I would say I've definitely did the Tippereth. I got up to that. No problem. Already past that. Like I've already got that down. You know, but now it is a good map. I like it, even though I'm more Eastern philosophy or Eastern mysticism. That's a great system. There's no question. It's a great, I'm actually sad that it took me this long to even look at it. No, Wyatt, the word is not ego. You're such a smart ass. No, CJ, not tenacity. God damn it. What is it? Like you're confident in your beliefs, or you're firm in your thing, or you're opinionated, or, but it's not so much negative. It's more like, because a lot of those words are a little negative. Conviction. You have conviction. So if you're very intelligent, you're usually able to speak with greater conviction than the average person who's just parroting what they think. I don't parrot much. I'm not saying I parrot nothing. I don't parrot much. I have learned it. So I have conviction. And that means that when I get challenged, I'm usually right. Based. I wouldn't call me based, but I guess I would, because based usually means conservative, and I'm not really conservative. I'm not really, like, obviously I'm not woke, because I think that's like fundamentalism on the other direction. I'm libertarian, but I'm not based not in the usual, like, right-wing kind of way. No, I'm not proud. I don't really do the proud thing very much. I am self-confident. I love myself. I try to be objective about my strengths and weaknesses. I try to be sincere. I don't like being told when I'm wrong, because I'm busy trying to figure it out. In other words, I shouldn't say I don't like being told I'm wrong. That came out wrong, but there is some truth to it. What I mean to say is I don't like being accused of shit or mocked or ridiculed with criticism. But if someone has a criticism and they frame it in a respectful way, I always take it into consideration. I don't immediately reject it because it sounds negative. If someone says, Thorne, you do this, even if I reject it to your face, inside I am assessing it, and I can, so like, I guess because of my upbringing, sometimes I can reject things up front, just to be like, nah, I don't think I'm that way. And then later I'll assess it and I'll be like, yeah, there might be something to that. So I'm self-honest. So some people have called me arrogant and egotistical as if it's going to offend me, but why should it? I don't know anybody that doesn't have any arrogance or any ego at all. So when you say, Thorne, you're arrogant and egotistical, I look at that person and I go, why are you judging me like you don't have that going on too? Like the only reason that you're offended by how much I like myself is that you don't like yourself as much as I like me. In fact, I probably like you than you like. Here's what my best comeback ever to someone who accused me of that was: if only you liked yourself as much as I like you, you might not care that I like myself as much as I do. Yeah, that's some Aries power in an Earther. You're not wrong. But I'm also becoming a Libra, because that's my North node. So I'm getting, it's an interesting mix, Aries and Libra. It is almost like I'm taking the left hand, the left pillar and the right pillar, and I'm balancing between them, I need to get Travis on. He commented on one of my videos recently. I need to get him on. I love Travis. I don't know if he likes me, but I like Travis. Travis and I spoke a few times in DMs, and he actually helped me with his wisdom. I love Travis. He's a really good guy. If you like my content, you'll like Travis's. Do I agree with everything he says? No. but I agree with him a lot. Like Travis is he seems like a really genuine practitioner. Like you could say like a lot of people out there are practicing or doing this for money and this. Travis really, he doesn't just parrot this. He has worked it. And I know that because, you know, game recognizes game. You know what I'm saying? Travis is one of the best. I don't say that. You know, how often do I give people that much? Mwah? Travis Magus is one of the best. One of the best. And he deserves whatever praise and fame he gets. Like he deserves all the praise he gets. Do I agree with everything? No, he's a little bit in the new age spectrum more than I am, but he is a genius. And I'm not swinging from his nuts. It's just when I like somebody, I like to make sure they know. That's right, Almanac. And I don't agree with it, but you're right. But I also don't disagree with them hardcore. It's more like you have to have some resonance with someone, right? You can't just be like, I disagree with you all the time and like them. That doesn't usually work. I like to resonate a little bit. And I resonate a lot with Travis. And he's further down the path in the Western tradition with the Kabbalah and New Age stuff than I am. I'm more of a self-made guy, you know, like I didn't go through books. I didn't do that work. I literally meditated and contemplated my way halfway to where I am without any help, without any books. That really pisses people off because it sounds like I am being super egoistic when I say that I figured all of this out on my own, but I don't mean that. What I mean is I didn't study anything. It was more like a net that I dragged across the universe of content on the internet and life and meditation and self-contemplation from every nook and cranny of reality, because there's things that fascinate me like space, time, the universe, mystical shit. And it just, over time, just bouncing back. So there was no, I guess what I really mean to say is it's not that I didn't learn it from anywhere. It's that I didn't study a system and I didn't study a tradition and it wasn't like that. It's more like I just said, give me everything. And then I just started putting the puzzle together myself. So that pisses people off though, because when they hear that, they think, what a stuck up asshole. He thinks he knows better than because he figured it out with anybody else. It's like, no, I say that because it blows my mind when I'm validated for being right without knowing it. Like when I go open a book and someone's like, you know, you said this, and they say that in this book. And I go, I never heard of that book. Let me look it up. And I look at it, like, oh shit, they kind of did say that, didn't they? And it blows my mind when that happens. Because it's like, but I can tell you that if I seem like I got it figured out, it's only because I sort of hit that Gnostic state and figured out that divine union thing, and then apply that to everything as a framework, and it makes everything else fit. Like, so for example, it's not that I never heard of Kabbalah until this year. When I was a kid, my friend was big into Kabbalah, and he tried to get me into it. And I looked at it and I'm like, I don't like this. This just, aesthetically, it's boring. And it seems complicated with all these spheres. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what evidence is, you know, like it didn't click. It wasn't for me. I was more into Zen and shit. But now, having had that ego death, non-dual moment, that boom, I see the universe, I know what I am. Now, when I look at that, I go, holy shit, that is a really good map of enlightenment. That's a really good, for Western minds, that's really fucking good, without a doubt. So, it's good. No question. I agree, BW. He says, that's actually the best way to learn. Had you started a particular system, it would have hindered you. I agree. I agree. But it's not for everybody, though. I will disagree. It's not for everybody. You have to be an autodidact. You know, you have to be capable of self-learning. Not everybody's capable of that. A lot of people learn better when they're taught, you know, and that's an advantage in certain areas and a disadvantage in others. Like for me, It's a big disadvantage because I don't do well in scholastic situations. I don't do well in organized education. I'm too independent. I have my own methods, and I do it when I'm into it, because when I'm into it, I'm obsessed. I'm like a pit bull when I'm into, I don't let go at all. It doesn't matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter. I will spend, if I get it into my head that I need a piece of information, I'll spend all night with Google Foo back and forth trying to find it. It's part of that ADD thing. Like I just, once I hit on something, I have to do it. And yes, magic is ultimately intuitive, and there's a reason why it's ultimately intuitive, and that's because you're God, and it comes from your higher self. You don't need somebody to tell you. Where do you think the first people got it from? Do you think that the first magicians learned it from another magician? Of course not. They just intuited it. They figured it out. Solara S says, some occultists preach that initiation is absolutely necessary, talking about through the Sephiroth or Cliff. There's a lot said about initiation. It depends on your definition of initiation. If you mean formal initiation into an organization or a tradition, a specific path, no, I don't think that's true. In other words, I disagree. If on the other hand, initiation on the other hand, if we take it just as its rudimentary meaning, which is you're initiated, in other words, you're introduced, you have a background that tells you like the 1,000-mile view of something, yes, you do need to be initiated. Like, you guys are being initiated right now by listening to me. You're being initiated into Thornism, or whatever you want to call it. You know, you're being initiated into Thorne's mystical view. And so initiation is required. It's just formal initiation from somebody like a gatekeeper. I agree, that's bullshit. But you need to at least self-initiate somehow. And that is, in the modern era where all of this stuff is at your fingertips, the hardest thing is not being able to find it, it's knowing which ones are legit and which ones are bullshit. Right now, when you go on the internet and you go to any social media group for magic, anywhere between 70 and 100% of it is bullshit. And by bullshit, I mean it's a bunch of millennial poppycock superstition, new age, I saw it in Harry Potter shit. That's 90% of it. That doesn't mean it can't work. I want to be clear. That doesn't mean it can't work, because magic is intuitive. Magic is not about what you do, but the context of what you're doing. I love that. I love that now. Context versus content. It's not so much about the content. It is about the context. But if your context is wrong, it can still work. It's just harder to do. It's like, you know, how many of you guys know you can make bread without flour? You know, you can make bread without flour. You don't need flour. You can make cookies with just an egg and a little bit of sugar. Is it the same? Does it come out right? You know, there's a way to do everything. But the way that works best is usually the one people figured out and put together with, you know, a good mind. So Kabbalah is a structured roadmap that works. It definitely works. I can tell you just by looking at the little, you know, I'm only halfway through the book. I can already see how I'm going to use it. I'm probably going to use it wrong according to tradition, but I found ways I'm already going to use it. It has already opened up huge, just like my study into Egypt and Hermeticism has been doing. It's opening up huge corridors of learning that's instant for me, because it's kind of like I gather up all this information and I learn all these things and all these secrets, but they don't all fit together. And then I get a key like that. And now suddenly passages in the Bible make sense that I didn't understand before. I understand what Genesis is, what Revelation. I understand so many things better now, like instantly. Like things I suspected before, I now know why I was right. So that's why I recommend all these things. Yeah, Paul, I agree with that. You got to know how to spot the meat and know what the fluff is. I agree. Atropa, what does Travis say? He said, yes, I don't know who you're... That's the one problem, because Atropa will comment on what I'm saying, but I'm not sure what she said. Or she might be commenting on one of you guys. I don't know. That's what... What is Travis? Does Travis agree with me? Oh. I love Travis. He's a cool guy. I probably wouldn't kiss his ass as much in person, but he's a cool guy. Could be Wyatt, could be algorithmic. It absolutely could be. You know, they steer us with that shit. The more you're on the computer and television, the more you get hit with it. There's no question. When I was when I used to work at Binder and Binder many, many moons ago, and something would come up, like I'd talk to people, because I would talk to sometimes 100 people a day from across the country, you know, making phone calls or whatever. You know, people who were looking for their unemployment, disability. So I was talking to a lot of different people from all around the country, all walks of life. And there were days like everybody was in the same kind of mood with the same kind of thing on their mind. I'm like, why is everybody talking about the same thing? This is really weird. Like, it really struck me as weird that people across the country would be in a similar mood, have a similar set of ideas, a similar, well, it was beyond synchronicity. It was more like everybody was being pumped up with the same information or the same ideas by television or something. It was really weird. It's like, was that on TV recently? Is that why everybody's talking about this? Like, this is really weird. Yeah, Rosicrucianism's decent, and Egyptian mysteries is harder because there's this thing that the modern academics have done, and they've really ruined ancient religions, because their entire framework is magic isn't real, gods aren't real. So everything that they look at, when you look at the academic view of Egypt or Sumeria or Greece or Rome, instead of seeing it in the context that the people would have seen it in, they apply their modern materialistic, skeptical, atheistic, hard bullshit, because it is bullshit what they think, hard bullshit dogmatism to that. The same way like the medieval Christians thought that everybody was a savage, you know what I mean? Like they thought the Native Americans were savages who needed Jesus. In the exact same way, these modern academics approach ancient antiquity. And they look at the beauty and the things that were being said by these different cultures, and they turn them into, Atropa said the same thing about context and content. Maybe that's where I got it from. Sometimes I pick up something and don't know where I got it from. Maybe that's where I got that from. I don't know. I've had it in my head a lot lately, and I don't know where I got it from. I thought I came up with it. Maybe I didn't. Because, my memory sucks. So sometimes I pick up shit and I don't know where I got it from. Maybe that's my secret. Maybe I just don't know that I got it from other people and I just regurgitate and don't know I'm doing it because I internalize it so much. I don't know. It's possible. Just being honest. I don't know. But, so they have turned history into, they downplay magic and spirituality as them attempting to figure out the universe with that instead of science. Like I said, they will try to say that the ancients literally believed that, Demeter, brought the winter and Persephone brought the spring. That is not what they fucking believed. That is what they believed was happening in the spiritual plane of reality. They didn't believe that it caused it in the same way that billiard balls work. They meant it like that's the reality and this is the shadow of that reality. But when they were saying that that's the reality, they personified those forces, but they knew they were forces. Does that make sense? And they didn't mean the material forces that we do. They meant the thing that animates those material forces. What modern scientists would call quantum, perhaps, as a rough equivalent. So they weren't just these stupid you know, unibrow peasants that believed that rain was caused by, you know, Dooby Dooby, the god of thunder. That's not what the ancients believed at all. And when I say that, I don't mean the rank and file peasants. I mean the ones who were with the ones who were the mystical, the mystery school people, the ones who ran the real truth. Just like today, there's the knowers and the not knowers. They're the ones who have the peasant religion and the one who have the true religion. That's what I'm talking about. The ones who really knew, who really ran that shit, they knew. You know, this is the madness of our modern time, is that we have these assholes that act like they know. But all they're doing is they're just librarians and mathematicians, modern science and academia. That's all they are. They don't really internalize, they don't really think outside of any boxes. Some of my favorite physicists and scientists today, I look at them and go, you know, you're encyclopedic. But do you understand what you're saying? Like you can tell me that, yeah, you know, an electron is a perturbation in the electromagnetic field and it has locality only in a quantum sense, and it doesn't actually exist in the spot until you check for it. It could be on the other side of the universe. You know, an electron that's around the orbit of an atom in your fingertip isn't necessarily here. It could be on the other side of the universe right now, but as soon as you measure it, it might appear here. Because electrons are only local in the quantum sense. They're in a you know, that wave of probability. And there's a non-zero amount that electron could be on the other side of the universe. Okay, so you understand that, right? That's really great that you figure that out. What does it mean? Well, it means that blah, 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 blah. Right, but what does it mean? Like, what is the metaphysical meaning of this? Oh, metaphysics is bullshit. What? No. Metaphysics is the source of science, idiot. Without metaphysics, science wouldn't have never appeared as a tool. Science was meant to probe the physical illusion so you understood how it was put together so you could understand the higher reality. And most of these people who do science don't know that, but the people at the top levels, they do. I know they do. Because again, most of them were pantheists. Most of them believed in something not far off from what the Hindus and the you know, all these people believe. This is one of the reasons why I don't care for, like, a lot of people are like, Thorne, what do you think of Morgue Official? Disinformation. He spits some facts and he's a hyperbolic, you know, celebrity. I've watched him many times and appreciate certain perspectives that he had, but that guy is poison. I would not listen to him at all if I were you guys. And that's not a jealousy thing. I've analyzed his position, and he's just trust me. Wyatt says, DH, let's do a mind meld. You think of something and blurt it out 10 seconds from now. I'll type what I'm thinking. I don't think so. I don't think as much as you do, probably. So, SpaghettiOs. I don't know. He's like, quick, type SpaghettiOs, so it looks like we're thinking the same. I like that. Traveler from the East. Just be nice to each other, guys. I don't know what's going on in there. I guess SpaghettiOs is a little like an ocean. It's a liquid anyway. It's full of little circly things and stuff. Oh well. Near miss, right? Not a hit. Horseshoes and hand grenades, maybe. Very big hand grenade. Venus. Patchy, what's up, brother? And I'm getting ready to log, too. What time is it? I didn't check. Oh, shit, I gotta go. I didn't know it was this late. All right, I'll give you guys 10 more minutes. Wyatt, start the timer. 10 more minutes. So what's up, Patchy? He forgot it was Thursday. That's okay. You're allowed to forget. I'm not here every Thursday lately. I got to fix that. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I've been putting videos out, so. Spaghetti Ocean. Okay, all right. Okay, maybe that's what, I don't know who read whose mind. Maybe you read mine, maybe I read yours. Maybe I heard Ocean, and... That's all right, Wyatt. I'm going to be watching you. When you say 10 minutes is up, I'm going to go another 10 minutes. Nah, I really should go. I just don't like being abrupt. I'm not good with goodbyes when it's like this. Like, I like short goodbyes. I just like bye. Okay, love you. Thanks. Bye-bye. That's what I like. Oh, Wyatt. Angsty kids, I swear. Someday you're going to be my age. You'll be like, God damn, I was a dick when I was a kid. I mean, I was a cool dick, but I was a dick. God. Why did I have to? Wyatt, just do me a favor. When I'm in diapers in the old folks' home, just you know, slip me a little bit of the old the 5-leaf clover. You know what I mean? Just hit me up with a little bit of that bud once in a while, so that I go out with a smile. That's all I'm asking. Just come visit me, and if it's legal, great. If it's not legal, I trust you to figure out how to get it to me, bro. Patchwork, $2 says, I like ramen. Ramen Lake. I fucking love ramen. I just can't have it. Dickhood runs in the family. From what you've been saying, maybe. So Jonas, from the material perspective, you're right. The brain is basically a kind of transceiver. From this bottom up look, that's what it looks like. From the top down look, well, there is no brain. The brain is just an idea in the mind of God at best. And that's not even the top level. But from down up, from incarnate up, taking into account everything we see and assuming that there's truth to it on some level, you're right. It is a kind of transceiver. It's sort of like the CPU in your computer. It processes things, and then the screen is the projection, whatever your brain's doing. Consciousness sees that. However consciousness sees it, but it does. The divine consciousness sees that and experiences that. The silent witness behind all experience. That's the divine, and the experience is not separate from the divine. It's like looking at your hand and there's something happening in your hand and you're watching it. But yes. Paul says, I should do a Zoom stream. You know, I've done meetings and stuff. I don't like doing those with, like, me and Fleshy, when Fleshy was with me, we used to do this thing. We'd have people call in. We'd do like one at a time, and that was a lot of fun. I might do that again. I mean, that was fun, but it's easier to do when I have people helping, because, you know, there's a little bit of back end stuff. Like, he was able to like put them on hold and tell them, like, you know, we'd put the number up or whatever, and, you know, he would ring you in, and it was pretty cool. I missed that, but he had other things. He got sick of doing the you know, he has a life, you know what I mean? And he got kind of burnt out on it, and he had other things he wanted to work on. Damn it, Inerta. People doing it, huh? You're going to see more and more of that as things keep going, unfortunately. That's the thing I predicted as a kid, you know, as part of the coming times was a lot of people would go missing, a lot of people would kill themselves, all kinds of stuff. And that was back when I thought it was going to be monsters coming out of the ground. Maybe that is going to happen. I don't know. Solara S, do you still plan on doing a live with with EA? I didn't know that he was doing one that I was expected to do. I haven't spoken to EA much in like little messages back and forth every now and then just to keep tabs and say hi. He and I, we're still friends, but we're like, I wouldn't say we're close anymore just because we got our own lives that we're working on. I should hit him up and see, but I don't, it's one of those things where it's like, we're both doing our own thing lately. And I don't know if you noticed, I don't do as many group chats as I used to. It'd probably be fun to do another live with EA. He's a great guy. At least I've people have a lot of negative things to say about EA, and some of it has some merit, but that doesn't mean he's a bad guy. I think he's a good guy. At least what I got to know, he's an extraordinary person. He's been through shit that would kill most people. And if he's got issues at all, it's because of that. And so what he does is he's done a great job of building an empire and having he's healed so much of himself along the way. Again, do I agree with everything he does? No, of course not. He doesn't agree with everything I do. But love him like a brother, and he's never steered me wrong. He's never tried to take advantage of me. He never tried to steer me in a bad direction. He never betrayed me. Honestly, he's one of the few people in the community that I get along with, to be honest with you. And that's hard to do, I should call him up, see if he wants to play some games. I don't even care doing a live. I wouldn't mind hanging out with him again. We haven't played a video game in a year. We used to play video games a bunch. It was fun. He's fun to play video games with, especially certain games, because he gets so I don't know, sometimes he'll do a giant bong rip and then we'll play a game. We're like, what's the control? It's so funny, man. He is great, man. I miss him. I should message him. He's a cool guy. So I don't know. I don't know about a live stream though. DH, would you do a live with Behemoth? Yeah, I would do one with him, especially since I haven't had him on before. He hasn't been here in a couple of weeks, but he's usually here quite a bit. You might not know that, but he comes here quite a bit and he gets in the live chat and we have a good time, and he'll drop a few bucks and some great comments. And I highly recommend his channel if you're into that demonolatry / theistic demonology. I highly recommend his channel if you're into that. And he's a really good guy. I don't know if he's got what skeletons he's got that he's never revealed. I know he had some shit happen with his former wife and all kinds of, but he is a true blue good guy from what I can see. He's one of the most respectable guys in the left-hand path right now. And he deserves it. He deserves every bit of love and respect that he gets because he really, 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 really tries to do it right. So nothing but love for him. Same thing. I have a lot of love at EA, so he's just one of those things. People drift apart, it's normal. Laura says, hearing you speak of EA warmed my heart. Aw, he's a nice guy. He really is. Like I said, he's never steered me wrong. He's always been good to me. And, we don't owe each other anything. And I think that's why we're friends. When we first met, one of the first things I said to him was, I'm not joining Bog. I don't want to join Bog. I am not talking to you for anything like that. In fact, if you offered me a sweetheart deal, I'd tell you no. I'm not interested in joining Bog. And he's like, I'm going to profit off of you one way or the other. You know that, right? I'm like, that's fine. I'm just not going to join Bog. I'm not interested in that. And I think that he liked that because so many people approach him looking for a piece of the action. And I just wanted to know. I'm like, I don't care if you ever come on a stream with me or talk. I just want to get to know you because fuck all this shit. I hear so many rumors. I want to know you. And within like 2 or 3 messages, like we were hitting it off, and it was really cool because I was so glad that that's the kind of person he was, because everybody said he wasn't like that. Everybody told me that he was this cutthroat piece of shit that was trying to like use people, and he would use me, and that he would, not even close. The guy was a perfect gentleman with me the whole way. And, you know, tell him I said so. Tell him I miss him. He's a good guy. Yeah, BW, he really has left a mark, you know. BW says, regardless of what people think, EA has set everything in stone. I think you're right. There are things that EA wrote that I think are genuinely genius things that he wrote. Evoking Eternity, for example. I knew he was legit immediately just by a couple of things he said in that book. I'm like, that's someone who's done it. Yes, I agree. And it was insight that you can't, it's not written in books usually, things he said. He was the one who I agree with. Like, I've been saying it for a long time, and then I read him saying it. Basically, you got to role play. I say role play. He said you got to give them, you got to visualize a body for them to fill. It's basically the same idea. He just said it differently. And I'm like, anybody who knows that knows what they're doing. You know, does that mean he is an academic Kabbalist occultist? No. You know, no. He's more like me in that he's a seat of the pants occultist. That's how I am. I'm a seat of the pants guy. He's a seat of the pants occultist. I like those guys. They're usually more fun. But as I become more and more Libra, you know, I'm becoming more and more academic. What can I do? All right, guys. My voice is going. I saw Patchy. Patchy said, I remember the call-ins. I was nervous coming on those few times. Oh, Patchy, you did a good job, man. I'll have you back on sometime, especially with the Necronomicon stuff. Like, that was always cool to talk to you about that. Patchy's a pretty good, he's, by now you must have completed the gate walking, right, Patchy? Did you finish yet? I know you were getting there. I know you were getting pretty far through it. Because that gate walking, that's, you know, that's basically astrotheurgy Kabbalah all over again, just with a like, that's what I like about the Necronomicon. It's basically combining the same principles. You're walking through all the planets, just like you're doing. Every Sephira is a planet, by the way, until you get near the top. And even then, the more modern systems put, for Chokmah, they use Uranus or Uranus. Some put Pluto in Kether. That's ridiculous. I don't know why you'd put Pluto in Kether. That makes no sense, but whatever. Kether is not Pluto. It's like the most idiotic thing. Why it's trying to make me stay. Just for that, I should hit a button. But yeah, I should go. So, all right, guys. I should be back next week. Things are going to get a little bit weird because I am going to the day job part-time for the spring, summer, fall, Christmas season. You know, book sales have been down for a while and I haven't written anything in a while. So back to the regular job, at least a little bit. But I need the exercise, so it's good. So we'll see how that screws with my streaming schedule. Like if I have a big truck to unload or something, I'll usually be too tired, but you know, I only stream once a week, so it should be fine. So, all right, guys. Until next time. Oh, Wyatt, shut up. Mind the shadows.